Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow underway. The Monday edition is here. Jam-packed show. The biggest event in sports across the country is happening right now in Music City with SEC on full display, getting ready for the college football season. Got some great coverage headed your way from there. Glad you're with us here on the OutKick Network, which includes our YouTube channel. If you're not there already, you can join Chad in the chat. Search out OutKick. We hope you'll subscribe to the channel while you're there. Pound the like button and hit the reminder so you know when we go live each and every day, plus all of the great shows across the platform. Chad, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Hutton. It's always fun when our fair city becomes the center of the sports world, and that's what's taking place this week with two huge stories. SEC Media Days, the biggest event going across the country right now, right here in Nashville. We were over there this morning. And also DeAndre Hopkins. Lots of big storylines around the city of Nashville right now.
And that's where we'll start with our top headlines today coming out of the weekend. We were waiting with DeAndre Hopkins and the decision he was going to make. The Chiefs were involved. The lines in Vegas flipped again over the weekend where it still favored Tennessee as landing Hopkins, but ended up being Kansas City much closer than I think many expected. Not New England. And, Chad, here is Hopkins choosing the Titans. Familiarity with, of course, Mike Vrabel, with Kelly, the offensive coordinator. But beyond that, the money, which isn't all that much. $3 million total in incentives to be earned or could be earned. It's a 2-year, $26 million contract with voidable years after that, which is automatic with the deal that he's going to sign if he hasn't already. But the important part is only $15 million is guaranteed at signing. And that leads me to think if the Titans were the most aggressive on the market, they didn't bid against themselves, and no one really wanted to climb to this level to sign a guy who has 1,000 yards plus in 6 of the 8 seasons in the league. I'm stunned by that based on the money that I think people expected, but he didn't see.
Yeah, I think looking at the financials of it, 2 years, $26 million, but you said the $15 million guaranteed. And I think the Titans didn't really have to break the bank for him.
No, it's a great deal for them.
And he was far and away the best free agent wide receiver option around, right? So the fact that the Titans end up with him, they don't have to overbid. Great news for the Titans. And I think, simply this turns the Titans, to me, into the favorite to win the AFC South. I really do think they were an awful wide receiver room away from being, they were second place behind Jacksonville. They add to that receiver room. And now with Hopkins and Treylon Burks, the rookie coming back for year 2, I really think the Titans are right there with Jacksonville.
They had a terrible offensive line last year. They've made changes.
Yep.
And you just mentioned the 2 wide receivers that people would know who are fans of football. I still lean Jacksonville, honestly, with their wide receiving core, Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, who was a hit last year within that offense. And I think they're clicking as the season ended going into the postseason. There are still a ton of question marks across that division. Jacksonville and Tennessee should be neck and neck. They should be. But the war of attrition has crushed a couple of these teams in the division, namely at the top of the list, Tennessee. And if that happens again with all the injuries over the last 2 years, they can't afford 1 or 2, especially at the wide receiving core, because they don't have anybody after those guys. They had to get Hopkins, and they did at a very reasonable contract.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's the big takeaway of the options that were out there for Hopkins to go. I thought Titans were more desirable than the Patriots, and that proved to be true.
He really had no leverage.
Yeah, and I really think for DeAndre Hopkins' purposes of just go win a Super Bowl, you hope that Kansas City can free up some money and sign you, and you go play with Patrick Mahomes. But I think it's a great move for the Titans. And, again, even if you still are going to pick Jacksonville, which I understand, this makes the top of that division much more interesting with Jacksonville and Tennessee. So, big addition for the Titans, and they desperately needed to add to that receiver room.
Franchise tag deadline is today. We'll dive further into those headlines with Jordan Schultz, who will join us coming up in hour number 3, a little over 2 hours from right now, where we're awaiting word on the deadline, which is 4 o'clock Eastern, with a number of players, but specifically Saquon Barkley. The Giants are trying to get a deal done at the 11th hour there. Josh Jacobs and Tony Pollard are also ones we're watching for news to come out over the next hour. Jordan joins us with the latest headlines and what does or doesn't happen between now and then. If something doesn't happen, are the guys, are the running backs going to sit out? That's the next shoe to drop based on today's deadline. Generally, though, deadlines, they spur action. And ultimately, these guys can sign the tender, and it's $10 million guaranteed just by signing the dotted line with their name on it.
It's 4 p.m. Eastern, right? The deadline. So we're going to know in 54 minutes on this. But, yeah, I would say sign. That would be the advice. If I'm an agent, if I'm talking to these guys,
I know, yeah,
sign it.
If Hopkins doesn't have leverage, we know the running backs don't.
Nope.
Rory McIlroy has won the Scottish Open. He has won going into this week, which is the Open, the British Open. And Chad, he has back-to-back birdies to do so. And he does this after playing well but not sealing the deal recently. He's keeping his name at the top of the leaderboards, as are the top players, the major champions on the Live Golf Tour, namely Brooks Koepka and others. And the back and forth will continue with his opinions on Live as everyone takes center stage this week at Royal Liverpool.
Yeah, and he picked a good time to finally come through in the clutch at the Scottish Open, leading into Royal Liverpool, where he won the British Open in 2014 on this course. So Rory McIlroy playing well at the right time. This was the opposite finish of what we've seen from Rory in recent years, which is encouraging now going into a major. If this was a major, does he close it out with 2 birdies on 17, 18 to win it? That's been the problem for Rory McIlroy. It's not in the lesser tournaments like a Scottish Open. It's been in the majors where he's just not put it together. He's not completely fallen apart sometimes, but he's just not putting it together on a Sunday to go win a major. But it can't be set up any better for Rory McIlroy coming off this win and now going to a course he's very familiar with and he's won at before.
Yeah, I think his comments last week about, if Live Golf was the last tour on earth, I'd retire and just play the majors. I think he said, we saw the PGA Tour and Jay Monahan. It was the Canadian Open right before the U.S. Open, the week before, where he had to face critics and still does. By the way, he's back as commissioner official today on this Monday. He's back in after taking a leave of absence for a medical issue over the last month. Maybe it's been 5, maybe 6 weeks since then. Point being, I don't know the last time, well, in recent majors, the guys haven't really talked all that much about Live or the PGA Tour and the discomfort with playing across from each other, right? And in fact, there's not really much animosity from the players' end of it. I don't know if guys are going to comment much on it or not this week because we haven't seen that at recent events.
Yeah, I don't see any reason, that it's going to be anything different than what we've had. And it had really calmed. Even before the merger was announced, we had Scott Stallings on our show in advance of the Masters, and he just said, hey, it's not a thing. In the locker room with players, it's not a thing. It's a thing to the media, but guys are still friendly. If guys were friendly before, they're back to the same exact way they were, even if they left for Live. So I think everything is calm, and I still get a kick out of just the semantics behind Rory McIlroy saying, if Live was the last tour on earth, I would retire. And I'm thinking, well, Live is PGA now. It is molding into one, and the people behind Live are now going to be behind PGA. So we're really just talking about a different name. It's a different title. You're with the PGA, yes, but now Live is a big-time investor and has some ownership on the PGA Tour.
Chad, who is the most powerful person, individual person in college athletics?
Greg Sankey.
He spoke today, gave the State of the Union for the Southeastern Conference.
I got it right. Good. I like to get quiz questions right.
And had a number of issues that he had pre-planned and initiatives he wanted to get out there as storylines. Number one, he honors Mike Leach, who passed away within the last year, and did a great job in speaking about him. Number two, the SEC honored the first responders to the Covenant school shooting that took place back on March 27th here in Nashville. They had 4 of the 5 first responders on stage with him, and what was a cool moment. And they honored the 6 who were killed in that shooting, murdered in that shooting back in March here in Nashville. Beyond that, his main talking point is about Congress. It is about legislation. He took a shot at the state legislators who are, in effect, through recent votes, banning any type of regulation within their state on name, image, likeness, because that does not keep things equal from an SEC perspective across the board, from a college football perspective across the board. And he pointed to, if we don't get federal help in coming together and finding out how we corral this and at least decide on some parameters or guardrails for where we're headed, this thing is going to get much worse than the perception already is about who's doing what and what the players can or can't do. But there's not much they can't do at this point, Chad. And the portal being wide open and no one leading from the NCAA perspective, Sankey just straight up said, if we don't get Congress's help, we're not going to make steps forward in what we're trying to do to come up with a way that's fair for all sides, not just 2 schools in Texas, a couple of schools, in Georgia or wherever you want to point to, compared to the other states that are saying, we're going to put some restrictions in place. Meanwhile, Texas is saying, no matter what comes up federally down the road, right now, have at it. Do whatever you want. Spend as much as you want.
Also, the announcement today, speaking of Texas, that next year's SEC Media Days will move to Texas in Dallas, because that will be the launch of Texas and Oklahoma into the SEC going into that season. So they're moving SEC Media Days to Dallas. I think the way he phrased it was a patchwork, a quilt of state laws is not getting the job done. We talked about the one in Missouri where they can pay NIL money starting in high school. So if you commit to a state school, you can make that money in high school, and how that's a law that could benefit the Missouri Tigers, as an example, in the SEC. So he's right. There needs to be some sort of federal regulation on NIL and what's acceptable, and then every school in America can just play by those laws. And then everything is at least on the up and up with what you can do and what you can't. And a league like the SEC or the Big Ten or the ACC or any conference is going to be helped by federal legislation. And I know that Commissioner Sankey is saying this is a nonpartisan issue. There is a nonpartisan solution to this that could benefit both parties, both sides, everyone. I agree with him. But I also think when you're sitting around waiting for federal legislation and for our federal government to come up with a solution, we had Senator Tommy Tuberville on the show, and he said, keep praying because we don't get anything done here. That was his message to Greg Sankey and everyone else. That's not exactly a ringing endorsement or a cause for a lot of confidence that it's going to be the government that figures this mess out for the SEC and every major conference.
Yeah, no one's going to figure it out with the election year coming up either. So this is going to be more of the same. And I think this is this is a clear indication that the meetings that are taking place is a waste of time. I don't believe in meeting for the sake of meeting. There are a lot of people who do. There's no progress that comes from that. And I took his comments to mean that's exactly what's happening here. Grandstanding to act like you're affecting change when all you're doing is kicking the can down the road so you can point to something else and blame someone across the aisle from you whenever the time comes. That's more or less the indication from the SEC commissioner.
Yeah, we heard you out. Now we can check that box because we met and we talked about it, but now we're not going to do anything about it after the meeting. That's what these Senate hearings and everything else that's gone on. That's what it feels like to me. Now, in the NIL space with collectives, Spire Sports, Classic City, it's Tennessee, Georgia, Ole Miss, Michigan. Different schools are coming together with their collectives, and they form this collective association.
The Alliance.
I think that's – I mean, it's not everyone right now, but it is at least an effort and an attempt to come up with some rules to judge collectives by, which I think is progress, right? I mean, it's not just they're going to share information on certain things, but it's let's make sure that we come up with a way to look like we're on the up and up, because that's what we want to be. We want to be legitimate. We want to do things the right way. We want to help student athletes. We don't want to overpromise. We don't want to be the Florida Gators collective that promised too much money to Jaden Rashada, and he got to campus and realized that they had to come back on their promise to him and couldn't pay him, and then he ends up transferring. That gives collectives an awful name, and that's the last thing they want. So I do think coming together like that could be a benefit.
Meet for the sake of doing, not for the sake of meeting. But that's not going to happen anytime soon, and that's unfortunate because you're going to have certain state laws and regulations that will open the door and allow the schools that are spending the most money to continue to do so.
You know who does stuff? Bobby Carpenter. He does a lot. He's a doer.
And talks to a lot in the know. We'll have
He's
Bobby Carpenter join us next. We'll discuss the lawsuits that are headed Northwestern's way, plus maybe some NFL holdouts. We talk with Carp next on Hot Mic.
Pat Fitzgerald has been fired. Pat Fitzgerald, the beleaguered, the weirdo, I guess, or his weird players, has been fired by Northwestern University. And the Northwestern children, the players, are not happy about it. They are not taking it well. Well, I ask you, Northwestern players. In fact, I just put out a video to Northwestern players that are mad. And they're mad because, well, the old coach. The old coach got blank canned because, well, the players decided it was a good idea to get naked, do naked crawls, naked claps, naked soap up themselves in front of the shower and make players run through because the players of Northwestern really are perverted. I mean, I'll never understand it. Now, I got guys saying, well, you know, Bobby Knight, you guys hazed just in a different way, yelling and screaming. Yeah, you're right. We did. Tough. You don't like it? So what? But we never did the nudity thing. We never did the sexual assault thing. We never did the stuff, hey, we're going to slap you and dry hump you. At some point, the players, don't you agree, the players of Northwestern got to look themselves in the mirror and say, you know what? This is kind of on us. You know what? We caused a lot of this. You know what? We shouldn't have done that. Now, every time I see a Northwestern player from now on, I'm like, yeah, you're a weirdo. Used to be every time I saw a Northwestern player, I'd be like, man, you're a tough dude. You played for a tough coach, played for a high-end academic institution. I'd hire you in a second. Now I'm like, yeah, you got a bunch of weirdos running around there. Now I'm like, what in the hell are you doing there in the locker room at Northwestern? And I told you yesterday that this firing was coming because of this one reason. When you have to have outside people monitor your locker room because your players are perverts, because your coach allows it, because it's a culture of somehow, some way naked hazing. And no one's denying the hazing, by the way. So it's not like I'm speaking out of school. Sure, Fitzgerald, whatever, is a great dude. Sure, he is the face of Northwestern. I would argue he's the most important figure in the history of Northwestern athletics. Nobody's not saying good dude. But he did what a lot of dumb meat-headed coaches do. He got on his little mount. He's got his little pillar. He's got his little kingdom. And on top of the kingdom is him. And he got to thinking he was untouchable because no coach with any common sense would allow that in this day and age. I don't know what they were doing back when Bear Bryant was having guys out at camp. I don't know what they were doing when Kay first started. I don't know what they were doing at Indiana when Knight first started. I only know what I've been involved in, and it's never involved dry humping other men or nudity. Just saying. In the locker room. Naked. On my team. Never. Anywhere, actually, but never. Used to give you a ball tap once in a while out in public just to say hello. But I got to tell you, it's just the weirdest thing. And none of these players are taking any accountability. You know what they're doing? They're doing the Biden strategy. This went from the Bob Knight strategy of round up all the players, ex-players, whoever, and talk great things about this strong man. Look at his chin. Yeah, that's what they do.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us for Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Chad, I think the biggest news that will come out this week is how Kirby Smart takes questions on all the things happening at Georgia. That happens, is it tomorrow or Thursday when Georgia's on display?
I believe it is tomorrow.
Tuesday or Thursday.
Yeah,
it's coming up.
I'll double check, but I think it's tomorrow.
We've got Billy Lucci from TexAgs.com. All things college football. He'll join us coming up in about an hour. Jordan Schultz, Clark Lee, and much more. Right now we say hello to Bobby Carpenter, who's got a private jet who could join us here in Nashville for a party here at 6th and Peabody on Wednesday night. Bobby, good to see you, man. Hope things are well.
Oh, things are going great, guys. I don't know about that private jet, but
I've
see
seen
what
it.
I can do.
You've brought it here before.
Didn't you take a private jet to Taylor Swift?
2.
That is true, but that is not mine. So I don't own one or am in possession of one or even have one for personal use. And this isn't like a John Kerry answer where like my wife has the jet and I don't. There's no one in my family who ever has or most likely ever will own a jet.
Sirius XM is where you can find Bobby Carpenter, our college football analyst here on the show.
Georgia is tomorrow, by the way.
Okay, good.
That's when Kirby Smart will speak.
You agree that that's the top headline this week, other than Northwestern and the lawsuits headed their way, which we'll hit on in a moment. But on your show and our show here, we're going to be talking a lot about how Georgia either deflects or points to issues with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, who will be in attendance for the presser with Kirby Smart. I'm intrigued by how he addresses the off-the-field issues and the number of court appearances that his players have made since he's been there.
I mean, I guess I don't know if it's appropriate for him to make light of it, but I can make fun of it. And he could add, Luke Combs just recovered fast car, and I don't know if that was in honor of Georgia or what they were thinking about there. Yeah. You may want to just have that playing in the background, kind of ease into that a little bit.
Comes in with his own boombox, and he's just playing that on the walk into the podium.
Why not? I mean, you might as well own it at that point. I mean, but with that, obviously, there's some serious things that did happen.
Yeah.
So it's not great to go too far with it. But they've obviously they've won 2 national championships in a row, and so now the topic of conversation shifts to everything going on in the off season. And can you three-peat? Are you ready to dethrone Nick Saban? Are you now the kings of the Southeastern Conference? And so when you have that microscope on you, and you have some of the things that happen this offseason, there's going to be attention. So it's not undue attention. They're the best. They've been there. Everybody wants to know what's going on with them. And they've done it to themselves by putting themselves in the headlines. And like you said, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution are pressing on it a little bit. And it's great to be, an hour outside of Atlanta and have a lot of the media buzz and a lot of the attention. But sometimes that also can lead to be a detriment for you, if you will.
And I think the side issue or topic of discussion tomorrow and moving forward with Bama later this week, it's just assume that the quarterback spot at both programs are going to be fine. in the replacements that they're being. Stetson Bennett no longer there at Georgia. Of course, Bryce Young's the #1 overall pick from Bama. Do you agree? Is it just kind of something we should be overlooking, or is it not being talked about enough?
I mean, I have more confidence in Georgia's situation than I do in Bama's right now.
Yeah,
When
same.
you look at that, I mean, when you're bringing in a quarterback, Nick Saban is very calculated. He does not act in a rash manner. He's not going to be, irrational when it comes to things. He's not going to be overly responsive. But when you go through the spring and all of a sudden you realize, like, we've got a couple guys battling for a position and it doesn't really look all that good, we go bring in a quarterback from Notre Dame who, okay, let's be honest, like, Notre Dame, you feel like in the quarterback swap, getting Sam Hartman, they feel a lot better than probably Alabama does with getting Buckner. And Saban had the chance. I mean, you're telling me he couldn't have went and got, Hartman early in the season? He could have, but he wanted to let his guys play it out because that's what good programs do. You don't necessarily want to be responsive and get in the portal. If you recruit well and you developed well, you're going to be in a good spot most times. Well, they're not. And the thing is, it's the most valuable position now in football, whether it's college or the NFL. This isn't 10 years ago where we'll hand it off 40 times, play really good defense, and find a way to nurse it to wins. And so, yeah, they're in a bit of a pickle right now at Alabama. When you look at how good LSU is, Georgia looks like they're coming, Tennessee's on the rise. And there's some other teams now where the talent level and the coaching ability has really elevated. And with that, it's going to be a tougher situation for the Crimson Tide. Whereas Georgia, you feel a lot better with what you're hearing come out of the spring than you were coming out of Tuscaloosa.
All this Georgia talk and having you on the show right now, Bobby's got me thinking about Ohio State, Michigan. The Michigan-Georgia connection is that Jim Harbaugh has put signs all over the facility that say beat Georgia instead of beat Ohio this offseason because now Georgia is the mark, even though Georgia's not on their schedule officially this year as the two-time national champion. What do you make of that? That motivational tactic that now, we're out to beat Georgia and not Ohio State. That's no longer the emphasis.
Well, everybody's going to kind of look at things their own way. A couple years ago, Ryan Day, had a big push to try to make sure they were beating Clemson and taking care of that. That wasn't that they took off the, beat Michigan signs, that team up north and the countdown clock and all that stuff was there. But when you start getting to those elite levels, you start looking at more national brands and maybe teams that you struggle with. And, right, wrong, or indifferent, Georgia, they are the standard right now in college football, and they've been that the last 2 years. So I get why they're doing it. I love Jim Harbaugh and a lot of his crazy antics and everything he does. I think it's entertaining. It's really fun. When you start going in like this and start looking over, I mean, it's noticed by guys at Ohio State. I'm guaranteeing the players are seeing that and saying, okay, well, you beat us 2 years, and that's real. That happened. Let's see if we can get it done now for 3 years in a row, or if that pendulum will begin to swing back. So, yeah, that's what you love about college and those rivalries. And that's the one thing, guys, that when we have all this conference expansion, everything that happens, like the stuff that makes college football special is the rivalries and the emotion and the passion, everything that goes with it. And the fact that we're having this conversation now about it, and I don't ever want to lose that from what makes college football so unique and different from the NFL.
Here we go, Bobby. We knew SEC Media Days would produce some headlines by coaches saying something or doing something, and I know that you saw this and reacted to it. Brett McMurphy on Twitter saying that Texas A&M's Jimbo Fisher would not answer if offensive coordinator Bobby Petrino will call plays. Quote, I'm not going to get into that. Bobby was hired for a reason. Tremendous guy, tremendous football mind. Hopefully he'll call the game and have suggestions. Boy, Bobby, I was thinking, Jimbo Fisher's really turning things over to bring Bobby Petrino on board, but won't even answer if the guy's calling plays or not for him.
Hopefully he'll call the game and have suggestions. So is he going to call the game or is he going to have suggestions?
Yeah.
I mean, you really can't do both. It's like saying, hey, can you drive and be a great navigator for me as well? You're trying to figure out, what are you suggesting if you're the one that has the final say? And so Jacob Hester and I have been laughing about this for a long time because he played for Jimbo. My brother worked for Petrino. You feel like you have a good insight into those guys. You see them on the sideline. Both those guys have big egos. They've been very successful. And I just find it very interesting to see, when that first third down comes in and maybe Jimbo vetoes Maybe Petrino just tries to push it in anyway, and maybe it just doesn't work out as well, and they're getting some delayed games, and the offense isn't as smooth as everybody would have hoped. That's when you're going to see some good stuff. If they go out and they're winning games, 45-7, that won't be entertaining. But this has the ability to be about the most combustible sideline, I think, in all of sports right now. Just knowing how those two guys operate, the pressure that they're under, and the expectations that Texas A&M is going to have.
Billy Lucci joins us in less than an hour. We'll certainly get the latest. He will know.
I can't wait.
And read between the lines for us on those comments. What have you observed? What have you picked up on the last week since you last joined us about everything at Northwestern and the fact that there are lawsuits coming? Lawyers are going to get rich off of this.
Yeah, and that's what have been picked up. I've kind of looked into the lawsuits and trying to see. There really isn't a whole lot out there on them yet. I was surprised, and I don't know. I guess maybe nothing surprised me where, no one's really had not an issue, but no one's come out and publicly complained. But now all of a sudden that a coach has been fired, and it looks like they're in the wrong. All of a sudden we're going to garner up as much support as we possibly can, and go try to get financial compensation from the university. I mean, I guess it's not surprising in today's day and age, but if you had an issue with it before, I don't know why this wasn't pursued at a prior date, and it was only one guy or two guys or whatever, maybe up to 6 or 7 or something, what it could have been. So that to me is always something that I look at this and I get it. If there's stuff that's actually happened, people feel like they need to be made whole. But if you weren't pursuing it until this point in time, like I said, this isn't a situation where you're talking about young girls or younger kids. I mean, these are grown men that are in college, 18 to 23 years old. And so if there's something going on you're uncomfortable with, bringing that up in the present time, I don't think that should be a big issue, or even immediately in the past time. And I haven't seen who's hopped on this lawsuit and how far removed some of these guys are. But you're telling me you can be out of college 6-7 years and be 30 years old, and something that happens to you when you're 20. It wasn't like it happened to you when you're 8. Like you should have, I would hope, have the courage to be able to stand up and say something if this was going on at the level that it was going to, so you get it stopped and maybe get it adjudicated then, as opposed to waiting this long.
Don't you kick someone's ass if that happened to you at Ohio State?
Guys, I mean, I don't know. We've moved past all this stuff. Like when I hear stuff that's happened to guys in college, we're talking about football players that play a combative sport that are some of the toughest guys in the world. I'm not saying things can't get out of control and things can't go too far. We're talking about stuff that's happening in the locker room in broad daylight in the middle of the day. And so if someone's going to try to do something I don't like, okay, it's not happening. And I don't care if you're 18, 19 years old, or if you're 22, 23 years old. Like that to me, those things don't mesh. And I was telling the story in my freshman year, someone smacked my ass. I had a handprint on it for like 2 days walking in the shower. I mean, I about wanted to cry. It's probably the hardest I'd ever been freaking hit in my life. But it's like, all right, dude, you walk in, you shower up, you dust it off, and you go. Because half of it's just to see if you can handle it. And that's where it began, and that's where it ended. And there's crap like this that happens all the time. And so to me, when I look at this, I'm like, man, there's things in there that are serious. From people I've talked to, I don't believe that all those allegations are true. If they are, okay, well, that's another beast. But you said, man, you have the ability to step up and handle it, take care of it in the locker room, take care of it out on the field, or whenever you need to. And that's how those problems are solved.
See if you agree with this. I think there's got to be some other detail that led leadership to go from a 2-week unpaid leave in the middle of the summer to fired with cause. And they admitted that they can't prove if the coaches knew or didn't know. Meanwhile, I mean, there are a lot of allegations. I haven't read a single player's name that was involved in it, just those that are anonymous saying it happened to them. Or you've got Ruiz Jr., who is detailing it from back in 2005, 2006. But there's no one else to point to specifically. And to me, that's a bit odd.
It is, because like you said, it went from a 2-week suspension to a termination. And so you have to think there were more details that would come out. I from what people have said, that it's all in the report. And I don't like things going to court because, like you said, the only people that get rich are lawyers. But at the end of it, if they go through discovery, that report is going to become public. And we'll see if in there either A, there was stuff that was egregious, and you know what, it should have been more than 2 weeks at the beginning and maybe a termination, or if it's just the same stuff that we already had heard about, and you're thinking, well, now all of a sudden the court of public opinion has weighed in and we didn't like how it felt. So instead of standing by our original ruling, we're going to now bow down to the masses. And so that's my issue with it. It's if there's nothing new in there, which from what people have said, I mean, that Fitzgerald's attorney said there's no new information. Maybe there is, and maybe he's not being honest with it, but I don't know how you make a jump like that based upon the same evidence you had, a month prior.
Bobby, final 30 seconds or so here. Sam Hartman, quarterback now at Notre Dame, the rib that was removed from his chest, he's apparently making that into a necklace. Is this freaking awesome, as you would term it, or is this weird?
I think it's his mom that's making into a necklace, and she's going to be the one that wears it. At least that's what I had read. Now,
that's weird.
Would you wear it in the game?
Yeah. Would I wear my own rib? Maybe I'd wear my own, but I don't know if I'd want my mom wearing my rib. That might be a little bit different.
I could see you wearing like a bear claw or something.
The only rib I'm concerned with is the McRib, and whenever it's coming back on the menu, that's all I care about. I've got my little screw. I've got a plate and 9 screws in my leg. I'd have one taken out. I have the screw that came out, but I don't don it on my chest or wear it. It just sits on the medical bag in my
I'll wear it for these interviews.
I'll fashion into an anklet and wear it every day.
Bring it whenever you take the jet here Wednesday evening, and you'll be back early Thursday morning.
We'll see you at the party on Wednesday.
Thank you, Bobby. Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, guys.
Bobby Carpenter, college football analyst. Check him out on SiriusXM Channel 84. Absolutely one of the best. The Garage Beers on point as well. Lake Tahoe, plenty of headlines
on point
from a celebrity golf tournament that took place. That's where we start when we return.
Two biggest social media giants, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, are set to battle it out, and I'm here on Broadway asking people who they put their money on. Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk? They're going to fight each other. Who do you think's going to win?
I think Mark's got him.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that?
Because he's a man.
Okay, and Elon Musk isn't?
Oh, well, of course, he's got money.
Okay.
He's got money. Money, well, money's money.
Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg in a fight?
I don't know. I'm going to go with Musk.
Why?
It just seems like he's a little bit younger, a little bit smarter.
You just got a good feeling about him?
I got a good feeling.
Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg?
Musk.
Why?
He trains. That guy's going to beat his
But Mark Zuckerberg is actually training jiu-jitsu for 9 months.
Not happening. Elon Musk all day.
Elon Musk.
Why do you think?
He has no soul. I mean, I think he's definitely just going to no holds barred.
Elon Musk.
Why do you think that?
I don't know. I feel like he's stronger and smarter.
Oh, Elon Musk.
All the way? Why?
All the way. He's an animal. Think about it.
Mark Zuckerberg's been training for 9 months jiu-jitsu. You think Elon Musk can take him?
Yeah, I think he can take him.
Elon, that oh God, stop playing with Elon. Elon really do this out here, for real.
I hope Elon
Really? Why do you think so?
got better ideas.
Zuckerberg's like 5'7", 155. Musk is 6'1", 190. But Zuckerberg's been training jiu-jitsu for 9 months. Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg, who's going to win in a fight?
Oh, Elon Musk. No doubt.
Why do you think so?
He's the GOAT. I've been seeing all the Twitter handles and all the talk, and I'm on Elon Musk's side. I'm ready for them to get in the WWE ring and then come off the top rope. That's what I want to see. I want to see a people's elbow to Mark Zuckerberg.
If one was more likely to be a lizard or a robot, who would it be?
Elon.
Okay.
I think Mark Zuckerberg will win.
Why do you think that?
Because I think he already trains MMA, so he's got like the prior experience and stuff. I mean, they're both billionaires, so they have the opportunity to get the best training. But I think Mark Zuckerberg will pull away with the win.
Elon Musk.
Why do you think so?
Because he's bigger.
Bigger, okay, but Mark Zuckerberg's been training jiu-jitsu for 9 months. Do you think that matters?
No.
Because Elon Musk's he's gonna learn and train, right? So
Yeah. I think he'll handle Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg's a lizard, right? So
he's a lizard, but does that help him?
I don't think so. I think Elon will squash the lizard.
Cage fight.
Elon Musk is mental, so Elon Musk.
All it is just he's mental. He's mentally crazy. So
He just wouldn't care, would he?
okay.
He'd just absolutely go for it. I think Zuckerberg would be a bit more refrained.
Okay.
If that should ever happen, which I doubt, but you never know, it'd be entertaining.
Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg?
Elon Musk.
Why?
Because my dad is in love with Elon Musk.
Okay.
I think I'm going to have to go with Zuckerberg. I mean, Threads just came out, so.
Who do you think would win?
Zuck.
Why do you think so?
He's not a real human. He's a robot.
So he'll use that to his advantage.
Yeah, and all the Krav Maga stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah. Who do you think would win in a fight, Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk?
Elon Musk.
Why do you think Elon Musk?
I think Elon's
He
smarter.
works with robots, so maybe he built a robot to fight for him.
But what if Mark Zuckerberg is a robot?
Oh wow. Then I might have to change my answer.
Who do you think's gonna win?
Me.
Chad, we had the chance to catch up with Detroit Lions rookie quarterback Hendon Hooker earlier today over at SEC Media Days. We asked him his thoughts on the future of college football. He 100% agrees. Super conference. And he thinks we're headed towards like a union, a players' union as well. He agreed.
Yeah, it's and Greg Sankey today saying NIL has been a net positive for the most part for student athletes, but there are concerns around it that hit at a threat to the sport in 5 to 10 years. The sport as we know it. And that's exactly talking about what Hendon Hooker said. That's in line with that the sport as we know it is becoming no more because there's going to be a need for federal legislation with NIL. How do you classify college athletes if they are making money to play the sport as well? Will there be a union? There's a lot of things. And now I still believe that we're going to see college football played at the highest level very similar in the next 10, 20 years, however long, right? SEC, Big Ten, the big conference schools are going to continue. They're going to continue playing football at a high level, and they will serve as a minor league for the NFL for many years to come. I think a lot of other programs are going to be sacrificed in this that can't keep up.
But they'll be regulated by not the old ways, but the recent ways prior to the wide open free-for-all that took place July 1st, 2021. But I think in large part, a lot of the coaches at that level are going to have to become Trent Dilfer in the way of thinking, meaning Trent said it and told us, hey, if a Power 5 school's coming in and they're offering $200,000 to a player that I've developed for him to go into a junior season where he's likely headed pro and that's going to benefit him for exposure, who am I to sit back and say, no, don't go. We're going to offer you $50,000 instead to try to get you to stay. They're just not going to offer. And I think that will be the mindset. It will have to be the mindset of the have-nots in this group.
Just big picture, macro of college sports. I hope those smaller programs don't go away because those are great training grounds and outlets for kids who just want to go to college. We forget about that. There are a group of student athletes that, hey, I would just like to have a full ride somewhere. I'd like for those full scholarships to still exist.
First-generation college
for
graduate
football programs not in the Power 5 or even Division II or NAIA level, whatever it may be. I'm all for opportunities for young athletes to continue playing and get a little college money doing so. And I hope that doesn't go away just because of this desire to get to the biggest, baddest possible thing. And the biggest, baddest possible thing is a super conference, super league of college football that dwarfs everything else.
Two of the baddest at what they do in the NFL and in NBA put on display in Lake Tahoe at the American Century Championship. Let's start with Steph Curry could do everything well. The half-court shots, the full court, draining threes from the bleachers.
He's really good at ping pong too. I feel like he's a guy who picks up anything, and he's just great at it.
He's good at everything. He showed out a bit at the match late last month. Now he's in Tahoe, and he's got a hole-in-one. I mean, watch this. I mean, I'm sitting there watching the reaction, and I'm thinking, does Curry need anything else?
This is right at it if it gets there.
On the bio?
How about that? This hole-in-one, you see it, and you don't immediately think, man, this is a guy who could really catch a break. He could really use another break.
His
and
reaction's
he drains
the best.
a hole-in-one. The sprint up the fairway and the reaction, then tagging the flag stick as he goes past it, I thought was awesome. And that's what's so neat about that is here is a guy, multiple NBA champion, past league MVPs,
Yeah.
done all these things, so accomplished in his sport. And you see him turn into a child when he hits a hole-in-one, right? He's like a giddy little kid playing a different sport, and that hole-in-one is going to be, of all the NBA memories, college basketball memories that he has and he's made, that's going to be close to the top. I guarantee it. Based on that reaction,
I don't know of
hitting that hole-in-one.
anyone that would hit a hole-in-one and not react that way.
Oh,
in some way.
Yeah.
Now, what I do want to know is what was the bar tab on the 19th hole for this, because he's got to pay. I mean, you got Mike Vrabel there. Pat McAfee reported back as they were playing, said it was 12 to 15 cigarettes in early on in round one. Vrabel.
Yeah.
That
Freight
doesn't surprise me. Imagine the bar tab.
That does seem like a crowd in Tahoe that will get after it. With all those
Why do you think they go back every year?
Those celebrity just alpha males in one place playing in the Pro-Am tournament. I feel like that bar tab, it's not something that Steph Curry couldn't afford, but it was pricey. It was definitely pricey.
Yeah. The rivalry, maybe it's a rivalry moving forward. Aaron Rodgers against Tony Romo. Romo was the defending champ for the NFL players in this. And he's excellent at golf, among other things. Rodgers beat him.
One of the knocks was that he played too much golf, and that's why he slipped on his analysis, remember?
I did, yeah.
He was going immediately to the golf course, flying out, just playing golf all week.
Maybe he's taking off a few rounds in preparation because he's trying to focus. Maybe
The
CBS.
first thing I thought was, we're going to see an improved Tony Romo this year. If he's losing to Aaron Rodgers, who is still playing quarterback in the NFL, that doesn't get to golf nearly as much, maybe Romo is more focused on his analysis.
I think Romo and Nance will be just fine this year. It's a Super Bowl year for CBS. I'm curious about 2024-25. That's the season I want to see with them. After the Super Bowl, are they together, or is there really some friction there?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Because they're bringing everybody, they're hiring, they continue to bring guys in because you've got the Super Bowl this year. But you've got
every time I see this tournament and watch it on TV, I start Googling hotels and resorts in Lake Tahoe and want to go there. I've never pulled the trigger on it, never gone, but it's one of those. Remember the one challenge that was in Montana somewhere at that course? Remember Aaron Rodgers was a part of it? I remember looking up to see how much it would stay at that golf course.
Oh, in the match.
The match, yeah, not challenge, the match. But I remember looking up that. But every time, I so desperately want to go to Lake Tahoe when I watch this event. Never gone, haven't done it yet, but I always fantasize about going there one day.
Rodgers was the best among NFL players this past weekend in the 3 rounds. And I in this, I'm thinking Rodgers he looks, 10 years younger compared to last year. I think it's more than just trimming the beard and the hair.
I think that's
happy,
a lot of it, though.
Jovial.
That's a big
refreshed.
part of it.
He's playing for the team, miraculously came out of his cave and saw a vision that had him playing for the Jets. I mean, funny how that worked out, because that was the only team that Green Bay was willing to trade him to.
Does everyone in Green Bay just look 10 years older than their actual birth age? Does Wisconsin and Green Bay just
not Matt
age
LaFleur.
you
Matt LaFleur
to that level?
does not
Matt
look
LaFleur
older.
still looks good. He's staying young in the cold weather.
Jordan Love, we'll see how much he ages. Is it like the presidency?
I feel like living in Green Bay just may age you a little bit. Like everybody's just a little bit more mature, looks a little bit older. And then once he got out of that environment and he started breathing in non-Wisconsin air, then he filled the lungs up a little bit with that New York City fresh air that we all crave. And he got younger. The fountain of youth.
It was Colin Cowherd, I think, that said he didn't want a quarterback that loved golf. Is Colin Cowherd anti-Aaron Rodgers now for beating all the NFL players?
That's a good question.
Got to stand by it.
I was actually listening to Colin Cowherd on the way in because he is on before us on our Nashville radio station, 94.9 The Fan, was listening, and they were talking about the quarterback series on Netflix.
I've heard great things.
I watched the first 2 episodes. They're each about 45 minutes long. There's 8 episodes, I think, or 8 or 10 this season. Really, really good. It is the same group that does Drive to Survive, the F1 series, Full Swing, Golf, and now this. And it's very, very well produced. And you will love Kirk Cousins watching this. And Patrick Mahomes is more of an alpha personality than I ever could have imagined watching this also. He is incredible.
Was his brother in the room?
That's no surprise.
That might be why.
His brother has not appeared yet on the documentary through 2 episodes. Thank God.
I doubt he will.
His wife is a prominent character in the docuseries.
They have the chance to take over supremacy against Hard Knocks.
Oh, absolutely. I think this thing is so much better.
Depending on who they select.
Than Hard Knocks.
If you get the right tier
If you get
QBs.
the right trio every year, it will be great. I mean, Kirk Cousins is just a really likable dude. Look, I'm going to end up watching all of them. I've only seen the first 2, but all the good reviews you're hearing about it, I can confirm now. It's really well done.
I look forward to seeing it. Look forward to following the final or the second half of the Major League Baseball season. Chad, your biggest storyline to follow in the second half of the season would be what?
Well, the Mets and the Padres. I'm going to go with the Mets here. That's the number 1 and number 3 biggest payrolls in all of Major League Baseball going into this year. They both have failed miserably so far this season. I think the Mets are something like 19.5 back from the Braves in the NL East, and there's a number of games back in the wild card also. Will the Mets actually be sellers? Even with all that Steve Cohen money pumping through there, will they decide we got to get rid of some of these stars
they have
and go get some young assets in return?
But they have 5 or 6 players with no trade clauses.
Yeah, but Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, do you deal one of these guys, 2 of these guys, to try to go get prospects in return? That's a big-time question for me in the second half. What are the Mets going to do at the trade deadline, if anything?
Well, the last public comments that Cohen made was he's considered the contracts already money spent. And I love that. But he
also said if we're not making any movement in the standings, I'd be crazy not to
try to get something.
Yeah, try to look at what we need to do.
But is he a farm system guy?
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, so what are you getting in return?
Well, you could get someone who's...
But if you're a buyer and not a seller, you're not trading away good players to give to the Mets.
Well, you're trading away good prospects. So you could get like really good double, AAA guys that are going to be ready for the majors in a year.
But I don't know. I don't view Cohen as an owner that would be geared on developing players as much as it would be just signing the top players available because of the money available to him.
I wouldn't either, but I will say he seems like a guy who's smart enough to evolve. And if he feels like this isn't working, he will evolve into something different. And if his baseball people are saying, we got to go get these arms or this bat from this team and get rid of this guy, I think he'll listen.
It's tough right now because the guys that would draw the top dollar or top return have no trade clauses.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason why they joined. I mean, he would be great to play for. He's handing out top dollar. You can stay because of the no trade clause. You control where you go if you want to grant access.
And that's why it's such a big question going into the back half of the year because they could just sit. You know, they could just say, hey, it's a failed year, but we're not bailing out of this. We're still going to keep paying everybody, and we're going to come back and do it again and add to it.
Top headline, I know you agree here. Top headline in the second half is, at the trade deadline on August 1st, is Shohei Ohtani playing in a different uniform August 2nd. I suspect he will be. I hope it's not as easy as he's staying in Los Angeles and just going to the Dodgers. It sounds that way based on the insiders that cover the league. I'd love to see him in Seattle if he's staying on the West Coast. Beyond that, put him in the East. I don't care where, because he's going to be a national prominence and get so much more exposure. And from a playoff perspective, we'll see him lock and load on the mound and at the plate. And if he stays in the American League, he has a chance to challenge for Aaron Judge's home run record that was set in the AL.
And if he gets traded, how does that affect what could be the greatest single season in the history of baseball? When you look at what he's doing as a pitcher and as a slugger.
I think we see him more, and remember his season.
Does that affect his stats when he gets moved, right?
His season is extremely memorable, but will we remember it in moments instead of actually seeing the guy and tuning in the way we tuned in to Judge on a nightly basis? I don't know. Not right now. Not if he's with the Angels. Hope he's traded. That's the top headline around Major League Baseball. Top headlines today, next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation. And pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick, the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted,
he bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is being cheated. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I believe this person is the greatest player anybody alive will ever see. How can you hate Derek Jeter? A guy's on-base percentage tells me his batting eye, and a guy's slugging percentage tells me if he's a threat. That's the kind of guy that throws a no-hitter, that effectively wild guy.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. A bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the second hour is here. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow rolls on across the OutKick network. For Hot Mike, Chad, our goal each and every day.
Push
Have our
through.
listeners, viewers,
Push through.
We get you to 6 o'clock.
Get to the finish line.
We get you to 6 o'clock.
Get you there enjoying life, feeling good about things.
We want the fastest 3 hours through your workday. If you're listening, if you're watching. Hey, by the way, if you're watching possibly on demand on YouTube, we say thank you. We hope you'll join us live so you can chat with Chad.
I'd feel a lot better if we freshened up that photo that leads into the show of both of us. Those
you're not a fan of it?
Those photos were taken with someone who no longer works here, who also is not a photographer. Took those photos of us, and we were in New York City taking professional photos.
You make it sound like the guy was fired because he took those photos.
Hutton, we got hair and makeup. Yeah, it wasn't because of those photos, although maybe it should have been. We got professional hair and makeup done in New York City for photos that run during the breaks, I think, at times. But the longest time that videos are up is the preview of the show. And it's photos that were done months ago. We got to freshen that up.
Chad, coming up, Billy Lucci.
That's my assignment to the crew.
Owner of TexAgs.com. From College Station, he's here in town covering all things Southeastern Conference. And out of the gate, we're going to ask him about the relationship between Jimbo Fisher and Bobby Petrino, because Jimbo is at the podium today saying, man, he wouldn't commit to who's going to be calling plays. It's odd considering Bobby Petrino's calling plays.
And then he ended it by saying, we hope he calls games and gives suggestions.
Yeah. Billy Lucci. No. He was also backstage at Blink-182 last night.
Yeah, we can talk about Blink-182 since I was there as well. Aeneas Smith, the wide receiver, also was asked about Bobby Petrino and calling plays.
Yeah.
And he gave some sort of vague answer about how both those guys are so calm when calling plays and they'll work great together, and would not say who's calling plays. We'll get into all of it with Billy Lucci.
Also did not bring a quarterback to media days to make the rounds. That's intriguing because that's been an issue.
There's only
for the
5
Aggies.
Quarterbacks of the 14 teams there. Only 5 quarterbacks at media days.
Chad, the big news today through Greg Sankey, SEC commissioner, most powerful dude in college sports. Among the NIL, he wants Congress to step up and do something. The fact that he's doing that and saying that yet again means nothing's actually happening, and I'm not anticipating that to happen anytime soon. Neither is he. That's why he's saying it publicly at the podium with the litany of reporters that were in the room for the State of the Union of the SEC and college football, because everyone now moving forward for their own media days will react to the tone and tenor of what Greg Sankey has put forth. The other thing, though, that is of note, he doesn't see the SEC expanding past 16 anytime soon. In fact, he mentions that other decisions and other conferences need to be made by them to determine our path. But he believes they're fine where they are. They add Texas and Oklahoma a year from now. And he did mention super conference, but he referred to his own group as a super conference, his own conference. I believe him in that. I don't know, the layout of the Power 5 years from now, let alone maybe it's 2 years from now. But I do think the relationship between he and Tony Petitti, the new commissioner of the Big Ten, is crucial in whatever happens moving forward, because as a tandem, they could create practically whatever they want to as far as regulation as a super conference for football. And he's also pushing for an expanded college basketball tournament as well. You buy that? And I think a big part of this is the grant of rights with the ACC. That certainly plays a factor.
Yeah.
New athletic director at Notre Dame loves the independent status of the athletic program. That's not going anywhere. So I'm not shocked that he's saying this for another season. I do think they eventually add more teams. The question is when, based on the ACC, grant of rights, ESPN, the buyout with the ACC, and how all of this comes about. Because they did speed up the process for Texas and Oklahoma with the Big 12.
Yeah, and it's crazy to me that two conferences in the Big Ten and the SEC that seem to be otherwise ruthless in how they conduct their business and how they get things done are both being very merciful when it comes to the rest of college sports right now. Because I really believe that either one could add anyone they wanted if they aggressively pursued it and wanted to make it happen, to jump in line in front of the other conference before they get those more desirable programs in their conference. But it does seem that both are content to sit back and not completely upset the apple cart of college sports. And not knock it off its axis totally and destroy another league.
I think part of the whole thing is when both leagues, SEC and Big Ten, are going into new television contracts. I think that plays a huge part in the timetable of it, because when contracts will be, up for renewal, I think that's when it presses forward. Also, I think they're hesitant to jump in and make their own regulations for name, image, likeness in the portal, because no one's going to agree on it based on state laws, not federal laws. There are no federal guidelines for this. And if it's state by state, and Texas A&M, they're following a certain rule, regulation, and law structure compared to other states, well, why would they stop doing that and sign and join something that's going to benefit everyone, when right now they can do literally whatever they want to and pay whoever they want to, regardless of what the NCAA is saying and how the money will be funneled? So I think that plays a factor. I think they're a lot like the NCAA, and they don't want to be in court, and they don't want to battle state legislatures who are coming up with laws and a structure, but not really enforcing anything or any policy when it comes to what they're trying to accomplish, which is more of a uniform guideline process, not eliminating anything, just having a structure that state by state everyone's in on. And I think that's extremely difficult to do right now.
Yeah, if you could have federal government legislate it where they are administering and guiding the laws of these programs and schools and what they do, that makes it very simple on big college sports to know what to do. Because if you're running afoul of the law and you get caught, you're running afoul of the law. And then everyone is abiding by the same concept and the same law, and it makes it easier to legislate their sports. Quickly, though, on the TV deals you mentioned. The SEC's in an awkward spot right now because they are married to ESPN in every way. You got Bob Iger talking about selling the company, spinning it off and selling it to someone else.
Well, selling a percentage stake.
Yeah, you've got but also spinning it away from Disney into its own entity. But they're also talking about ABC, all the linear television channels that Disney owns is not a core part of the business
Maybe
anymore.
It'll be the sovereign
moving
wealth
forward. Could be the private investment fund comes in. But if they get sold, layoffs are happening at ESPN. I just think when the Big Ten made their move and they really diversified their television portfolio, CBS, Fox, the game on NBC now, we were really comparing it to, okay, what's better, that or the ESPN and SEC network basically being the SEC network and carrying basketball games, football games year-round. You know exactly where to go find SEC games.
Everything.
It's on the networks of ESPN. But now I look at ESPN and the business model a little bit more in trouble because of cord cutting and all of the money they've been spending in rights to leagues like the SEC. And it's something it's not anything to get overly concerned about right now. But if I'm a fan of the Big Ten, I'm liking the health and the future of their media partnerships better than the SEC's right now. And I did not think I would say that when all of this happened.
Well,
when they decided to
everywhere.
go all in on Disney, ABC, ESPN with SEC, I thought they probably had a bit of an advantage doing that. And now I'm not so sure. I still think that you want to be on the ESPNs in every other season that's not football. I think not having, Big Ten college basketball games on ESPN, I think that's a problem. I think that's where it becomes an issue for that conference.
Chad, I was out on Friday. A shout out to Armando Salguero for filling in. Always great to have him a part of the show. But news came down just before you guys went live about the NCAA finally, deciding what they wanted to do. $8 million fine for the University of Tennessee for rules violations, but the hammer came down on Jeremy Pruitt and others for show cause. What is a 6-year?
6-year show cause, and I think it's weird. It's a 6-year show cause, but it's like a year and a half that no one can hire him. Like, it's not even a show cause part of it. It's a year and a half, and then anyway, he got hammered.
What did you make of the details that came out about that, and from Pruitt's end of it as well?
It was just really, really dumb. The whole operation, just brazenly stupid with what they were joking about around the facility, with what they were texting people. Just really stupid. If you're going to go about paying players and cheating that way, you need to be a little bit more quiet about it. And him and his staff, this probably surprises no one if you've heard Jeremy Pruitt speak, or if you're looking at this photo right now of whatever this is he was wearing during COVID, that he comes across really stupid. Maybe one of the dumber things that he argued in the NCAA investigation and while being interviewed was that because the death of George Floyd and others and social justice, that's what compelled him to give someone $300 in a Chick-fil-A bag.
It was a mom, I think.
A mom, yeah, because he felt bad being a white man and felt like he needed to pay this player's mom. It's funny how, he only approached African Americans who can play football really good and gave them money. He wasn't just going, to inner city Knoxville and handing out bags of cash to just anyone. It was just the players he really wanted to play football for him.
He apparently he was paying players on visits that didn't even end up going to play for Tennessee.
Well, it was a paid visit scheme. Like, he was paying them to visit.
Darnell Washington
to go on an official visit.
Named.
We'll pay you to go on an official visit to come to Tennessee. Just really dumb. But to use that as an excuse,
that's ridiculous.
That, hey, as a white man, I was uncomfortable, so I decided to give them cash. And come on, just dumb. You wanted to get the best possible players, and you went about it in a dumb way.
And bringing up George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and their murders as a reason why you're handing out in the cloak of a Chick-fil-A bag.
Yeah.
But $300
again,
cash.
He didn't go to the families of those people and give them money. He felt so bad about that he stuffed cash into a fast food bag and gave it to the mother of a 5-star player. That's how he decided to handle social justice.
Did they land that
in his own way?
Do we know?
I don't know specifically which player that was, so I'm not sure. Now, here's the big picture thing for Tennessee. They got off pretty easy when this is all said and done, only because they've already docked themselves 16 scholarships. They'll have 2 more taken out this year. So now they just have to add 10 more over 5 years.
It is the biggest fine they've ever levied, though.
That part of it, that's a lot of money. I mean, people are like, well, it's the SEC. $8 million is a lot of money for any athletic department to fork over. Now, the NCAA's argument was interesting, Hutton, because they said the $8 million is what you made from the Music City Bowl and the Orange Bowl the last 2 years. So what we were doing is taking your bowl money and we're repurposing it because that's basically your bowl ban. You got to play in those games, but now you got to fork over that money to us. So whatever, that part of it's interesting. But now that there's closure to it, that's going to help Tennessee. And really what you're looking at is probably 82 or 83 players officially on scholarship and not 85 for the next 5 years. That's how they'll make those scholarships up because it's over a 5-year period.
And it's yet again an example of how the NCAA, they drag their feet when they want to on investigations and how long this takes. This was incredibly lengthy considering this has been, done for a while as far as the interviews and all the information they could come up with.
Well, and
there was a lot of it.
Another thing to keep in mind, those scholarship losses aren't going to be scholarship losses. Because Tennessee, with their NIL program, if they want an in-state kid to be a preferred walk-on, they'll pay their way.
Yeah.
You know, I mentioned this the other day, but Josiah Jordan-James is a starter for Tennessee basketball and a fifth-year senior. He was a walk-on coming back for this year because they were out of scholarships.
Yeah.
Well, he's a walk-on in title only because NIL is paying his way to go to Tennessee. Now a scholarship opened up for him, but point being, if Tennessee or any school wanted to go to some guys in-state or wherever and say, we got you through our NIL program.
We're going to take care of you.
You're going to be a preferred walk-on in title only.
Also,
but
what car do you want?
You're going to be on a full ride.
Yeah.
They can easily do that at the back end of their roster.
I'm also curious, what did Georgia pay Darnell Washington?
Well, and there's the other thing. What did Jeremy Pruitt do at Georgia and Alabama? I mean, do we think that he just got to Tennessee and this is the first time that he ever paid anybody or ever knew about payments to someone? So maybe he's just that dumb, and the moment he got in charge, he just went willy-nilly and started doing all these crazy things. But I doubt it.
I do too.
He learned this somewhere. I mean, look at the places he's coached: Georgia, Florida State, Alabama.
Although you would think he would be much more buttoned up in his approach of doing this if this were happening behind the scenes and he was the money guy.
I think at Alabama
he had his money guy.
He shut up and listened to Daddy Nick.
Yeah.
And Coach Saban could tell him to be quiet, and he would just do his job and recruit, and coach the defense, and that's all he did. And he never stepped out of line because it was Nick Saban, and he would be foolish to step out of line with him.
Chad, coming up, we'll dive into DeAndre Hopkins, his decision to sign with the Tennessee Titans instead of the New England Patriots. Reportedly, the Chiefs were getting involved in the last minute. And the discussion of the Bills and the Chiefs as being reportedly in on a possible trade. They were the two teams being mentioned. And they're not heavily involved in upping the ante on what was a very team-friendly contract that the 31-year-old ends up signing with the Titans to play in the AFC South. When we return, Billy Lucci, the co-owner of TexAgs.com, all things Texas A&M. Speaking of boatloads of cash and name, image, likeness, and collectives. But the headlines about Jimbo Fisher and the fact he won't admit that Bobby Petrino's calling plays. That's next.
Pat Fitzgerald has been fired. Pat Fitzgerald, the beleaguered, the weirdo, I guess, or his weird players, has been fired by Northwestern University. And the Northwestern children, the players, are not happy about it. They are not taking it well. Well, I ask you, Northwestern players. In fact, I just put out a video to Northwestern players that are mad. And they're mad because, well, the old coach got blank canned because, well, the players decided it was a good idea to get naked, do naked crawls, naked claps, naked soap up themselves in front of the shower and make players run through because the players of Northwestern really are perverted. I mean, I'll never understand it. Now, I got guys saying, well, you know, Bobby Knight, you guys hazed just in a different way, yelling and screaming. Yeah, you're right. We did. Tough. You don't like it? So what? But we never did the nudity thing. We never did the sexual assault thing. We never did the stuff, hey, we're going to slap you and dry hump you. At some point, the players, don't you agree, the players of Northwestern got to look themselves in the mirror and say, you know what? This is kind of on us. You know what? We caused a lot of this. You know what? We shouldn't have done that. Now, every time I see a Northwestern player from now on, I'm like, yeah, you're a weirdo. Used to be every time I saw a Northwestern player, I'd be like, man, you're a tough dude. You played for a tough coach, played for a high-end academic institution. I'd hire you in a second. Now I'm like, yeah, you got a bunch of weirdos running around there. Now I'm like, what in the hell are you doing there in the locker room at Northwestern? And I told you yesterday that this firing was coming because of this one reason. When you have to have outside people monitor your locker room because your players are perverts, because your coach allows it, because it's a culture of somehow, some way naked hazing. And no one's denying the hazing, by the way. So it's not like I'm speaking out of school. Sure, Fitzgerald, Fitz, whatever, is a great dude. Sure, he is the face of Northwestern. I would argue he's the most important figure in the history of Northwestern athletics. Nobody's not saying good dude. But he did what a lot of dumb meat-headed coaches do. He got on his little mount. He's got his little pillar. He's got his little kingdom. And on top of the kingdom is him. And he got to thinking he was untouchable because no coach with any common sense would allow that in this day and age. I don't know what they were doing back when Bear Bryant was having guys out at camp. I don't know what they were doing when Kay first started. I don't know what they were doing at Indiana when Knight first started. I only know what I've been involved in, and it's never involved dry humping other men or nudity. Just saying. In the locker room. Naked. On my team. Never. Anywhere, actually, but never. Used to give you a ball tap once in a while out in public just to say hello. But I got to tell you, it's just the weirdest thing. And none of these players are taking any accountability. You know what they're doing? They're doing the Biden strategy. This went from the Bob Knight strategy of round up all the players, ex-players, whoever, and talk great things about this strong man. Look at his chin. Yeah, that's what they do.
Coming up in about 40 minutes, Jordan Schultz will join us as the deadline for the franchise tag is happening today across the NFL. Have the very latest there with the top running backs who were placed under the franchise tag and where we go from here on all of the news in that area and more. Looking forward to that. Plus, Clark Lee, head coach of the Vanderbilt Commodores, will swing by our broadcast spots.
No one can
SEC
see this,
Radio.
what we're seeing right now in the studio, but there is a photo of Jeremy Pruitt. That's one of the funniest photos ever that's up there that our team put
You
together.
probably see it now. I don't know.
And I'm just looking at it during the break and cannot stop laughing every time I glance. I need to not glance at the monitor in that direction because I want to laugh every time I see this photo right here of Jeremy Pruitt talking with Kirby Smart.
Yeah, very anti-guidelines for COVID.
Well, just the hands on the hips, everything about the posture with that is incredible.
He also
chef's kiss.
Reportedly hated wearing orange. At least that was always the rumor.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is rumor or fact. Jimbo Fisher apparently wouldn't say who's calling plays this year at A&M today.
So this is from Brett McMurphy. Texas A&M's Jimbo Fisher would not answer if offensive coordinator Bobby Petrino will call plays. Quote, "I'm not going to get into that. Bobby was hired for a reason. Tremendous guy, tremendous football mind. Hopefully he'll call the game and have a few suggestions." Then he was pressed and asked again, and Jimbo Fisher said, "I'm not going to get into what we're doing from a schematic viewpoint."
Okay, well, maybe that's all it is. Hired for a reason. I'm assuming that's to call plays and run an offense, but the guy that will know is Billy Lucci, the owner of TexAgs.com. Always dapper for this week. Hopefully, Billy's at the party coming up on Wednesday here at 6th and Peabody. Billy, hope things are well, man.
Yeah, great to be on with you guys. Looking forward to winning. I'm in the process of changing my flight.
Good.
Okay?
Good.
I've been on one trip, 2 trips. I did Mexico, Colorado, now this. I'm tired, I'm old, but, you know, once I saw the party and that Clay and you guys were putting it on, I'm like, I booked the room. I've scouted my flight back. As long as I can go first, leave early in the morning Thursday, I'm in. So and it's only because of y'all.
Well,
I like Nashville, but I've done my.
We'll change the party to tomorrow night if that's needed. So just let us know if you're going to be there.
I too was at Blink 182 last night, Billy. I wish I would have seen you there. It was
you couldn't
awesome
see him there. He was backstage.
Yeah. You were on stage with him at one point, I think, right? I think you played drums with Travis Barker.
Yeah, Barker needed a rest, so I just started.
You have a connection with practically anyone that's connected to anything. What's your connection to Blink-182?
You know, it's funny. My good friend now of like 10 years plus is on Texags as stage left ag, and he just heard us talking about music. He said, hey, you know, I work for Journey and Lionel Richie. He's their sound. You know, he's a stage left, hence the name. And he's one of my best friends in the world, has been for a while now, but he does works for a big company here now in Nashville, where they basically do the sound for all these mega acts, for the sound for their tours. They run the whole tour, and everyone from, I think, like, I'm making up names here, but like, you know, Adele, Chris Stapleton, all the way, the whole gamut. And I guess it's kind of like an agency, for lack of a better word, where you represent Petrino, you represent Jimbo, you represent Nick Saban, Brian, whatever, and this tour, I think he was the head guy on it for Blink, and it just so happened that the last show was last night in Nashville while we were here for SEC, so it was an easy fit.
Just briefly, how crazy was the after party behind the scenes?
I was not invited to that. I was in bed by midnight.
I'm shocked.
I wasn't complaining about it.
Billy Lucci with us.
I don't know. I mean,
go ahead.
That would have been good.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying now you're making me feel like I missed something.
Well, you should feel that way. You're the one with access. Texags.com is where you can get the very latest access to all things behind the scenes with Texas A&M. So what's the real story of who's calling plays, and should there be any controversy or any doubt if it's Jimbo or if it's anyone else for that matter, because the head coach refuses to say.
And I don't know why. I get, sometimes I sit there in the media, and I guess it's like living with the players when I was in college, and then the friendships I've got and dealing with coaches. I understand. Sometimes I'm in this weird middle world where I get the media side of it. We're like, well, we're just trying to get an answer, but I also get the coaches side of it where they're going, hey, look, I'm not telling y'all just because you keep asking 2, 3, 5 times. And I think if you go back, Jimbo's already kind of said, I know he said he'd be willing to visit giving up play calling duties. I know he said, before anyone, people didn't think he'd hire a coordinator. He went and did it. Then people say, well, why is it Petrino? Why? It's one thing after another, and I think he's just kind of, for whatever reason, and I don't know exactly the reason, is just not going to say. And maybe it's a hey, I don't want to sit here and say, hey, I'm giving it up. I think it would help for him to say that, just to get the question to stop being asked, but he might not really care. He might be like, I know what I'm doing. It doesn't matter if I answer this or not. I'm just telling you from what I know. I'm firmly convinced that Bobby Petrino will be calling plays, and I think Jimbo's just careful to, the offense is his baby. It's going to continue to be. Like Greg McIlroy said today, he didn't forget how to coach. Coaches typically don't. I think he is embracing bringing on a coach like Petrino with his experience, and Jimbo with his experience against Bobby. And the same thing, by the way, with Jim Chaney. You got to remember they hired an analyst, too, now that's been the OC at, Georgia, Tennessee, Arkansas, Purdue. They've got James Coley on staff, who's been the OC at Miami, Georgia. All of a sudden, there's a wealth of experience and knowledge on this staff. And is Jimbo going to just recuse himself from offensive meetings? Absolutely not. He's going to be in there and heavily involved. I just think on game day, and I'm 100% certain, Bobby's going to be calling plays. I think the bigger question is not, is Petrino calling plays? It's like, when it's 3rd and 4 and they're up 7 at Miami in September, or at home against Auburn, a couple weeks later, and it's 3rd and 4, and Petrino thinks there's an opportunity to take a shot down the field, and Jimbo wants to, thinks the running game's going. Yeah, like who wins that decision? That to me is the bigger question. And this whole thing about, it'll free Jimbo up to recruit and manage the day-to-day in the program. He was already doing all that anyway. What it frees him up to do, I think, is on game day, instead of being so ensconced in preoccupied and just kind of overwhelmed, maybe even at times, by what's the next play, what's the next series going to be. If he needs to go talk to his O-line, he can do that. If he needs to go ask the DC, why do we keep running three-man front when they're gashing us on the ground, he can do that. If he needs to go talk to his quarterback or an individual player, he can do all of that without being caught up in that playbook and trying to figure out, when we get the ball back in another couple plays, ideally, what are we going to do? And I think that's where you'll see one of the biggest differences. But I've already seen it, guys, in his demeanor when we just off the record are talking about football. There's a different level of excitement and enthusiasm. And I think that's the one thing nobody is factoring in is like, hey, and I'm not saying he's doing any favors with kind of the non-answers to the questions, but no one's really, even bothered to think about what if he really likes this hire and he's pretty damn excited about it. And I do think that's actually the case.
Billy, the final year of divisions in the SEC, final year of the SEC West, and if I had to pick a sleeper team that could contend in the West, I'm picking A&M. Because I think people have fallen asleep a bit based on how bad it was a season ago, and you forget the level of talent that's still on that roster. But a lot of that has to do with Connor Wigman and how good he's going to be this year. Do you like that pick by me, that this could be a team that is a big-time sleeper?
Yeah, because I think their ceiling's pretty darn high. I don't know that they'll get to it. I think getting to it and finishing 8-4 is a matter of, a few fourth quarter, is it 2 fourth quarter drives that could go either way. So, but man, I think Wigman is slept on. I think they've got a great QB situation in general with Connor and Max Johnson. No matter what, I think they're going to have a really nice 1-2. I think Connor has to win the job in August. If you made me pick today, I think he will. But I think in the spring they were pretty equal. Man, I think by the end of the season, Connor Wigman can be one of those guys that people say, we didn't talk about him nearly enough this offseason. He finished, last time we saw him, he's beaten LSU. And I know A-Chain carried the load, literally carried the load, carried it 38 times. Connor played really well in that game. He made some great throws early, some great scrambles that were underrated. Here's a 3rd and 8. He outruns Harold Perkins to the sticks. No turnovers, and threw some of those passes late where he wasn't scared to let his receivers go up and make plays. That's the last time we saw him. 8 touchdowns, no picks in 4 games as a starter last year, and I think he's just scratching the surface. But the talent is there. We know that. They lost maybe 2-3 guys in the portal that were even going to contribute this year. Think about that. For all those numbers everybody wanted to throw out, they made a big deal when they lost a guy that started at center last year, and he did an admirable job. But when he left, he was a 3rd-string center. They didn't lose a lot that was going to affect 2023 A&M football. The talent is there. A ton of it is now going into from year 1 to year 2, which you guys know what a jump that can be.
Sure.
So I think the key will be September, because I think I can't imagine A&M blowing out Miami, Auburn even early in Hugh Freeze, and Arkansas. Can't imagine them blowing out any of those 3. But I could certainly see them winning those 3 games close. They won 2. They won 2 of the 3 last year close, lost 1 close in what was the worst year in A&M football. It's like the 2nd worst year in the last 30. And they were 2-1 in those 3 games. They can go 3-0. It's not going to be easy. And A&M will have to start the year playing good football. And if they do that, then they could be having kind of that breakthrough year you talked about.
Got a couple minutes left here. I'm going to get your thought. Billy Lucci with us, co-owner of TexAgs.com, one of the top college sites out there, period. Greg Sankey, his address focused a lot on name, image, likeness. He points out state legislators that are banning any type of regulation on name, image, likeness. I'm sure Texas is top of mind for many people. What did you make of Sankey's comments? And I mean, ultimately, does it even matter?
I just don't think it matters. I respect the hell out of Greg Sankey and the job he's done in this conference. I think the athletic director's jobs are next to impossible right now across not only the conference but the country, and dealing with these legitimate fundraising arms that now have popped up, like, say, for Texas A&M, the 12th Man Foundation, you've got the IRS legislation, you got state law, and you're trying to kind of sit here and navigate through all that. And it feels like, I think to all parties, it changes every single day. Yeah, I would love some guardrails and regulation too, just to see. I think it would be so much better for the game. I just think we're so far past that it doesn't even matter. I don't really think it's possible at this point to get it right. I've lost all faith that they can rein anything in when it comes to NIL and do it the right way. And I think if they over pursue regulation and constraints, then you have, I think, an even bigger issue, because then what's going to happen, where you're going to start punishing. They're going to punish a Miami or a Tennessee or a Texas or A&M or LSU, and then not do anything to Bama or Florida or Georgia. It's so inconsistent already in terms of the punishment. And you saw what happened with Tennessee. You saw what happened with LSU, these wrist slaps. But then the NCAA will come down super hard on programs for doing, like, something really small. I think the more they try to regulate, the more inconsistent everything's going to be. I think it's too late. I think they had guys, 15 years from when this whole Ed O'Bannon stuff started, and they didn't do a damn thing. They sat there. It's like a hurricane was coming. Tornado's one thing, right? That just happens. A hurricane, if you're living on one of these, Gulf cities where we all are familiar in this conference. I sat there, and, I'm 30 minutes from Galveston, and this massive hurricane's coming, and you got days to say, we're going to get in the car, we're getting on a plane, we're going to get out of here, and you don't do it, and you say, I'm going to sit on this water and ride it out. That's essentially what the NCAA did. They just waited and waited and waited and thought that the hurricane was going to veer off and not hit them, and then you go, oh, huh. So to me, the problem is, there's no riding this one out. It's going to shore and die out. It's just going to sit there, and they've created this massive, massive problem that I think has a chance to really do irreparable damage to the college game. We'll see. And that's coming from somebody that we're active in NIL, kind of a crowdsourced thing, and we get content out of it. The athletes get the practice of doing, kind of one-on-one long-form interviews. They come in. I just don't, and I love athletes getting paid. I think they should. I just hate the way it's so different from state to state, school to school, conference to conference. It's just, and I'm saying that as A&M being one of the winners in NIL, let's say. One of the programs that has the infrastructure, has the support. There's a lot of them that do, but most of them don't have it to the level of, say, an A&M or a Texas or a Bama. I still don't like it. I don't like the lack of uniformity, but I don't know. The government's going to bring uniformity?
No, that's not going to happen. You're right.
On.
Billy Lucci, the co-owner of TexAgs.com. Maybe we'll see you at dinner. If we are, that means we're having a nice dinner tonight, and we'll definitely see you tomorrow morning and join you on Radio Row.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Billy.
you, man.
Sounds great, guys. Thank you all always. We'll see you this week.
Yeah, man.
See you.
Cheers to you. Coming up, there's cheap, and then there's Oakland A's cheap, which we know, but we'll tell you how bad it is. That's next on Hot Mic.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
I just think the way Anthony Bass handled this was so sloppy.
Oh, I think it's perfect.
And what he reposted,
he bent the knee and bowed. He was going to catch the ceremonial first pitch.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image?
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it, people. I'm pissed off about this. I never did it before in my life, but Trump is...
6th and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Chad,
Blink-182 crushed it last night.
I was going to ask you about that.
Quickly in there, quick aside, because Billy was talking about it also. I did not get to go backstage, but I was up very close for that concert, and took me right back to my late teen, early 20s. Those guys have not changed a bit with the sense of humor, with everything about them. Really, really good show. I like this thing they did too, Hutton, where they said, all right, this is the last song, I promise. And then they play it and then said, okay, we left the stage and came right back. And they just keep playing. So they acted like it was an encore. You know, they were going to say goodnight before. And then once they finished, this is the last song, I promise. All right, guys, and thank you and good night. And we're right back and let's go. And they start jamming out to another hit after that, which was their encore, which was good.
Shout out Reno. Did you, how many drugs did you see throughout the night in that?
Reno gets it
in
done.
The arena.
I saw at least 2 sets of drugs in my vicinity.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean it was a lively crowd.
And
it's one of those
tickets.
that I'm like, I mean, people were getting after it on a Sunday night, but I mean, when you take the stage at 9:30 on a Sunday night, and I'm here to tell you, Blink-182's initial crowd of fans is not the youngest anymore. That's a tough.
That doesn't surprise me.
It's a tough draw, but everybody seemed to be having a good time.
How old are they
No one
now?
was wanting to leave. Oh, they're mid-40s.
40s, 50s?
I'd say, yeah, mid-late 40s.
Yeah, that does make you feel old. Me too.
Now you've got me curious as to the exact ages of these guys.
But they live up to the hype. That's great.
Yeah, they were really good.
There are a lot of bands, in my opinion, from that era that don't perform very well live.
Travis Barker's 47, the drummer. He is amazing, world-renowned drummer. What I like about a band like that, it's 3 dudes. That's a lot of noise coming out of 3 guys, right? It's drummer, 2 guitars, and the 2 guys playing guitar also like trade lead singing back and forth. So that's a cool mix.
Chad, Davey Hudson's over at SEC Media Days for us this week, but you better believe we still have Let's Get Weird.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, talking now.
Have you seen let's start with the guys that will throw in like a massive, they'll have a big magnet that they just throw into a river or a lake and just drag it and see what they come up with?
No.
And in some cases, they'll find I don't know if it's live, but dynamite that's packaged around metal that they'll pull up and have to call authorities.
I've not seen this, but now
it's happened multiple times. Most recently, a story out there that a man has he caught a stolen truck, a Jeep from 1990 while he was fishing. He ended up catching this Jeep instead of any big fish. I wonder what he thought he had on the line, but he ends up finding the Jeep that was stolen back in 1990.
That is next level. Catching a stolen Jeep from 1990 while fishing is certainly weird. You've got me wanting to go down a YouTube wormhole of this, Hutton, of watching people drag things to the bottom of lakes or rivers with magnets.
It looks like. Have you seen the movie Fried Green Tomatoes? It looks. I know you have.
Not a question I was expecting on the show today, but yes, I have.
It looks like the old vehicle, as they pull it out of the lake, to hide it. I mean, it looks very old compared to probably what it looked like when it was thrown in. I don't know how you hide that for that long.
No. But I'm glad someone found it.
Yeah, he goes, I could see the tires, the roll bars, steering wheel, shifter. And I thought, oh, dang, I knew right away it was a Jeep. And I was like, holy crap, I'm kind of excited about this. It was,
I mean, to take it to the next level, though, to be someone who does this, right? To like, the someone thinks, like, this is what I'm going to do now. I'd like to watch it, but I can't imagine putting forth the effort to be the one who does this.
But he was out fishing. There were fish on it as he pulled it out, and he went ahead and caught all those fish before taking care of the Jeep. I don't blame him for that either. Well done. I don't know how you can – a lot of county jails don't have the full-on metal detectors now when you're coming to visit or, you're having to do the strip search. There's a guy who had live ammunition tucked beneath his testicles. They found a bullet, and I don't know why you would think to put it there because they're automatically going to make you bend over and cough. And then the next thing is, that's the next obvious part. If you think someone's not going to search it, they're automatically going to do that to you in prison, jail, whatever, especially for these places that don't have the metal detectors because the county just doesn't pay for it, or it's so small time that their county jail, my hometown, they've got probably 150 beds in the county jail.
Yeah, I'm picturing the jail from Rambo: First Blood, where he's like he's harassed by the local cops, and they strip him and they hit him with the hose and all that. That's the type of jail I'm picturing in my mind when I think about someone trying to sneak bullets under testicles into the jail. That I'm not thinking about a max security prison that this happening in, but some local jail.
I mean, it was a .22 caliber bullet. I'm thinking to myself, though, is there already a gun there? Like, what do you need the bullet for? Are you making some type of drug with the gunpowder? I don't know what you're sneaking that in for unless... here locally, there was a guy that was working behind the scenes on a construction of a new jail/prison here. And he was caught, thankfully. But in the construction, he hid items for inmates to find during the building of the structure.
Jail? Wow.
And everything from, but hiding like guns,
like a scavenger
bullets.
Hunt. It's like an illicit scavenger hunt.
Shanks. A machete, I think, at one point, like a lot of different things. A drill.
Hutton, since you went with Fried Green Tomatoes, a 90s movie, I'm going to go with another one. In the Line of Fire. Did you ever see that with Clint Eastwood?
John Malkovich. Long time ago, but yes.
So John Malkovich is setting out to kill the president, and Clint Eastwood plays a Secret Service agent. And if you remember in that movie, John Malkovich, his character constructed a wooden gun. I remember that he was like shooting ducks with it or something to test it out to get through a metal detector. It was a wooden gun, but I don't remember what the bullets were in it. I was just thinking about that, about bullets triggering a metal detector. And I'm thinking, well, what did he use for bullets in the wooden gun? So maybe someone in the YouTube chat that is more familiar with that film can tell me. That's the one part that triggered in my memory, that wooden gun and how it wouldn't trigger the metal detector, but I'm not sure what the bullets consisted of.
Phillies right fielder Nick Castellanos, in answering a question about his favorite superhero, he says Scooby-Doo. How does that pop up in your head for superhero?
Also, not a superhero, right? I'm like, I don't know how to define but I mean, Scooby-Doo did solve crimes. Yeah, the Scooby-Doo and his
Sure.
His pack of friends were really good at, stumbling into different capers and crimes. So maybe that was a superhero-like quality,
I mean,
right?
That's normal.
Yeah.
Is that a superpower?
Don't think so. Was this like one of those rapid fire? I'm guessing it's like, you got to answer, 10 questions in 10 seconds.
Well, he's doing something for the SPCA, I believe.
Okay.
For apparel to help out, pet adoption and different things. I don't know. I don't know how you come up with this other than it's planted, but it makes you look stupid.
Hutton, do you have a favorite superhero?
I'm not really into I would say Batman based on what I grew up watching.
Yeah.
The Batman movies.
I'm definitely a Batman supporter. I like actual humans that like have gadgets and different things that make them superheroes. Not like a Superman type alien power. Iron Man, I'm a fan of Iron Man for that reason. Tony Stark, just a really smart rich guy.
Those movies were great. Yeah.
Bruce Wayne, just a really smart rich guy. I mean, his superpower was wealth, if you really think about it. Both those guys. And
I
super
think though,
intellect.
I want to say I'm not a fan of those type of movies. I think the problem is everyone's remaking them every other year. Like, I'm just tired of seeing the same series over and over and over again.
Well, it's now also...
But, like, everyone's going to watch it or they wouldn't make it.
It's this... Well, it's starting to not happen also. The Flash bombed.
No, but if they make another Spider-Man, people will go watch it. If they make
Yeah,
another
the Batman did well. I don't know if they're doing a sequel to that when they brought it back. I actually thought that was pretty well done, and I was skeptical going into it. The problem now is also that it feels like there's no stakes anymore. There's like multiversal stories. So you're like putting these warps into like different universes of times and everything so they can bring back like Michael Keaton as Batman in this Flash movie. So they're like going into different alternate realities. I think there's a scene where Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton are playing Batman in like some different universe. And it's just when you do that, there's no you can't get into the story because what matters? Like if everything's just gonna flow into a different universe in a different time, then nothing really matters. It's all like a dream. I'm not a big fan.
Where were you on Spider-Man?
I like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. I really did.
I never got into Spider-Man at all.
But I'm not a big Spider-Man guy. I don't know that I've seen the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, the more recent ones. I know I've seen him in one of the Avengers movies or one of those Marvel movies, but I've not watched I'm not a big Spider-Man guy.
What's the last cartoon you watched that you were into? Because Chad hates animation.
Beavis and Butthead, 1994.
Do America?
I mean, I watched Beavis and Butthead when I was like in middle school. That's probably the last cartoon I've watched.
See, we would sneak in to watch Beavis and Butthead and South Park. We would try to sneak that around, plus WWF at the time, to watch Stone Cold flip people off.
Oh, you like on TV? You're saying
we would try to watch that, and then, it came on at like 8 o'clock or whatever. Then Undressed on MTV, that was the other one.
My parents weren't great about monitoring my media intake. I just don't think they cared.
Is that because you're the youngest?
Have I ever told the story about how my parents one time just popped in Fatal Attraction when I was like 7 or 8 years old for us to watch on family movie night?
They didn't turn it off the way...
I don't think they understood ratings systems, and they would like put in an R-rated movie, and then that movie got really bad really quick and very sexually explicit, and they just sent me to my room. And I'm like, you just showed an 8-year-old Fatal Attraction.
It was much better than my experience with my grandmother watching Jerry Maguire in the opening scene.
Oh, yeah. We have discussed that before. I knew to get up and use the bathroom. I'd seen it before without my parents, and I knew it was going to be a hard cut to the scene we're talking about in Jerry Maguire early in the film. Yeah. And I would make sure to go to the bathroom during that part and just magically come back when everything was over.
Yeah, early on,
I can like hear in the other room
in a massive sex scene.
Them talking too when they're nude, talking to each other, and they're just like eating breakfast food, and I can hear them talking. When they got done talking, that's when I knew it was clear to walk back into the room with my parents.
The Oakland A's are extremely cheap. How cheap? They didn't even send their mascot to Seattle for the All-Star game. I would say the fact that they still have a mascot for $2,000 to $5,000, sometimes, $25,000 for the reverse boycott. I'm shocked they even employ a mascot right now.
Yeah, don't go half measure here. Go full measure and fire the mascot. Why would you have a mascot? That if you really want to get as cheap as they need to be, and they have been, just don't have a mascot. What is the Oakland A's mascot also? Do we know?
Isn't it the elephant?
What is it? Is it an elephant?
Yeah, it's the elephant wearing the A's.
Oh, that's right.
Stuff,
Yeah,
right?
That makes sense now.
But I don't know.
When I was watching Ricky Henderson in the A's years ago, I feel like I saw that elephant at some point.
You think there are that many children that are looking forward to seeing the mascot at an A's game?
I hate mascots of all kinds, so I'm not the one to ask. I don't know that I ever liked a mascot when I was a child either. I'm just not a fan.
I wish this dude or whoever's inside the mascot would just paid his own way and gone to Seattle.
When you do shows with any microphone in front of you and you're doing something and there's a mascot around, if you're at a sporting event,
yeah,
it is like catnip for that mascot. It doesn't have to be the mascot of a cat. They come up to you, they mess with you. It's like you're trying to, they're miming stuff at you, and it's so utterly annoying. I cannot stand it.
Today was the deadline for any player trying to negotiate an extension that's under the franchise tag for this coming season in the NFL to get that done. The top running backs in this category, they didn't get it done. Saquon Barkley is not happy. Jordan Schultz gives us the details of all the NFL news next.
Of male advantage plaguing women's sports, it only recently came to light, I feel like, for so many, including myself. I was really only became aware of this when I was slapped across the face with it in regards to Leah Thomas. But as you alluded to, this is something that you had experience of. You were well ahead of your time. I mean, 43 years ago, you saw this. And so would you be able to touch on what that experience looked like competing against the East Germans?
And we would have East German athletes turning up to things like even like the Olympics, and we'd never, ever seen them before. And they would literally arrive and smash world records. They looked and sounded like, very masculine. They had deep voices, very large Adam apple, bad skin, through no fault of their own. I've never had a problem with these individuals. They were pawns of a horrible system. The people I have a big problem with is the IOC. And they allowed this to happen for 20 years. They even had East German doctors sitting on international doping panels. So every time we came up with a way to try and catch them, they would find a way to avoid being caught. And this was allowed to go on for 2 decades. So imagine the number of females that missed out. However, those females only missed out at international competitions, and they predominantly missed out in swimming, track and field, and rowing. What we've got now is 10 times worse, because this is happening across every single sport, at every single level, in every single country. So I've been pushing very hard to say, right, we need to have a female classification, however that looks. Me, ideally, I'd love to bring back sex tests. And then an open and inclusive category so that everyone is still welcome in sport. Because just like you, I'm sure, you want people to do sport. You want people to be physically active, to be healthy, because it helps us, both our body and our minds, and in a world at the moment with mental health, particularly in young girls, through the roof, we need people to be physically active. So it's the last thing in the world I would ever want to do is to ban anyone from sports. I just want to protect the opportunities for people that are biologically female to have equal chance of being able to win medals, put successes onto their onto their CV going forward, get university scholarships, get places on teams, be proud of records that they set, whatever it is. Females are worthy of equal opportunity. We are not second-class citizens, and I'm not prepared to sit back and pretend that we are. So,
amen. Oh my gosh, it's so true. There is no compromise for women. There is nothing that we should have to give up to ensure that trans athletes can compete. But that being said, trans athletes shouldn't be banned from sports. Of course not. And that's something that we see in the States a lot, especially in regards to state legislature being pushed. The opposition, they always say this is an anti-trans bill that bans trans athletes from competing. And that's simply not true. I love how you mentioned it equips people with the right information, with effective messaging, how to communicate about it, what to do. Really powerful. You mentioned in your book, you had a quote, I think it's from Cynthia Cynthia Millen, and it says bodies compete against bodies, gender identities don't swim, which is that's the basis of the argument.
How do we marshal feelings? It's ridiculous. You know, if we turn around and say that we're going to accept a feeling that says someone can feel like a male or a female depending on their feeling, not the reality of their body, where does that stop? You know, what's the next feeling that's going to trump a reality? And we're not doing our kids any favors when they're not. They're going to have to take medication for the rest of their life. They're going to have to do things to their bodies which will probably shorten their lives.
Just like that, the final hour is here for Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network, Monday edition. Plenty of headlines out there from the SEC on full display, as the top newsmaker across sports will be Greg Sankey and the top coaches in college football, discussing more than likely name, image, likeness, regulation or the lack thereof, and regulation in Athens. What's going to happen there with Kirby Smart addressing the media tomorrow here in Music City. Chad, DeAndre Hopkins is headed to Music City. He is signing a 2-year contract. It's longer than that. The final 3 years are voidable, and it's written in here that they are automatically going to be voided. A very team-friendly deal, and the Titans, apparently the most aggressive in this negotiation. They land the 31-year-old who in 6 of 8 seasons has 1,000 yards plus. There are some incentives, but the guaranteed money's $15 million on a $26 million contract, and it's not that bad of a cap hit considering what was expected, I think, whenever he was released by Arizona. Where does this put the Titans? We've had the conversation about wherever Hopkins goes, what does it mean for that team? He's not in Kansas City. He's not in Buffalo. Chooses not to go to New England. He's now joining a team where he could be a number 1 option, and if he's not, he can be a option 1B for a team that was desperate at the wide receiver position as far as depth is concerned.
If you looked up mid in the dictionary from an NFL standpoint, I think you could find the Tennessee Titans before this signing.
Yeah.
Very mid. 8-9, 9-8. I think that's a solid bet about this Titans team going into the season. DeAndre Hopkins, though, changes this team because it's what they needed so desperately. And now you look at them offensively, and with Treylon Burks, with Chigakonkwo, with Derrick Henry, first and foremost, if the offensive line can just get to average, and it was awful a year ago, they got a chance to do some things if Ryan Tannehill stays healthy. We can say that about every starting quarterback in the league, but we saw it a year ago. Ryan Tannehill goes down. Titans go on a huge losing streak. They get to the final week of the regular season in Jacksonville with a chance to win and win the division, and they lose a close game with Joshua Dobbs at quarterback. So given all those factors, if they stay healthy at quarterback this year, I think the DeAndre Hopkins signing is huge for this Titans team and gives them a leg up over Jacksonville. I think either way, they're right there with them now, and they've got a great shot at winning the division. Now, what does that mean for Super Bowl hopes? I don't think a lot, quite frankly. I think it's a team that their ceiling is winning the AFC South and making the playoffs. They're not going to go on a playoff run because they're not built that way.
Well, but
I do think it's a team, Hutton, that now puts them squarely right there with Jacksonville, either right behind them, right with them, or right ahead of them.
But what does that mean for options for Hopkins? Not a lot. He didn't have them. The leverage just wasn't there. I look at this deal and I think, so New England wouldn't go to that level, and it's not a very high bar. And there were not teams that would make room for him to join their wide receiving room that are legitimate Super Bowl contenders based on the qualification. And I'm with you. I agree with you what you're saying. It's in the AFC especially. That one player does not make a difference if you don't have the quarterback. This makes Tannehill better, but this doesn't make Ryan Tannehill Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Joe Burrow.
I think it says a lot about Mike Vrabel, too. and what DeAndre
Sure.
Hopkins thinks of him and thought of him
And
with
Tim
his
Kelly.
time there with Tim Kelly. That's a big part of it. I think it's a big win for Rand Carthon, new general manager, and it's a big win for Vrabel and Kelly in the sales pitch. And just to get the guy to say yes. The guy that was the most talked about free agent this offseason for a receiver, they landed him. That's not insignificant that the Titans were the one to win out in this quest for DeAndre Hopkins.
The running backs did not win out in terms of the deadline to get a deal done, a long-term extension versus the franchise tag. We'll get to that in a moment as we say hello to Jordan Schultz, NFL insider, who joins us. You can follow him on social at Schultz_report. Jordan, great to have you back on, man. Hope things are well. And what did you make of Hopkins choosing Nashville and the Titans over the options or maybe the lack thereof that were in front of him?
Well, I had said early on that I felt that Tennessee had a great chance following their visit, which was a really good visit. A lot of, I think, continuity there. And what I mean by that is you have the Mike Vrabel connection, you have the Ren Carthon connection, you have an offense that really needs him. And I think for DeAndre Hopkins, who, as he gets into the later stages of his career, maybe he's not a top 6 guy anymore, but he's still a top 10, top 12 caliber wide receiver, still a number 1 option. And as he gets into his early 30s, I think it's important to him to A, be wanted, B, go to a system where he can thrive as a true number 1 option, and number 3, go to a healthy franchise. You know, if you think about what Hopkins endured in both Houston and Arizona, it was really bad. And, you know, with respect to what both those franchises are doing now to turn things around, I think that's great. But the bottom line is Hopkins was really at 2 terrible places from a player perspective. And I think that definitely weighed on him. And I think the opportunity to come to Tennessee, come to Nashville, and play with a franchise that is heading in the right direction was extremely appealing to him. And obviously, he got paid a lot of money, and that helps as well.
When you saw the contract, are you surprised that there were not more teams involved for the 31-year-old who can certainly find the end zone when needed?
I was a little bit surprised that Cleveland didn't make a real push, because I thought, given the connection with Deshaun Watson, given the fact that that roster is in really good shape on both sides, and I thought pairing him with Amari Cooper would have given them a lot. So I was surprised that Cleveland didn't make more of a push. I think it really came down. I think that the final thing that put Tennessee over the top potentially was the money that New England simply couldn't get. And so, you know, listen, wide receivers, I think we talked about this the last time I was on, after he had visited Tennessee, which was to say a lot of teams had allocated their money, especially toward the skill position guys, and didn't really have that much left. I thought Kansas City would have made sense, but they were going to have to extend Chris Jones to free up more cap space to get in the mix there. So ultimately, they didn't really make the push either, but I had heard that they were talking up until the end. So, you know, I think it's a good fit for both sides. I feel like if I'm Hopkins, you know, it's the first time in my career spanning about a decade where I can go to work every day and feel like really good about it. Feel like I'm in a franchise that's, again, going in the right direction. And for someone that is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, that has to mean something.
Well, what does this do for the Titans? Does this make them obviously a contender for the AFC South, but
Absolutely.
Does it do anything more than that for this team?
I think they're a good football team. I think they're a 10-win football team. It feels about right to me. You know, maybe that's 9, maybe it's 11, but right in that vicinity. I don't think they can push Kansas City, Buffalo, Cincinnati. I think Baltimore is going to take a significant step in the right direction. So I would put them in that second tier of AFC teams. But the fact that I think their defense should be pretty good, and they're figuring this thing out with Kevin Byard, which is a positive. He'll be there. And this is a ball-controlled offense that, with a healthy Derrick Henry, should be, along with Atlanta, probably running the ball more than anybody else. So they're going to be in a lot of football games. And Now it's clear that they're all in on Ryan Tannehill, at least for the foreseeable future. We'll see what happens with Levis and potentially Willis. But ultimately, this feels to me like a 10-win football team, a competitive team. I do think the division is wide open. I mean, I think Indianapolis is ultimately going to start Richardson. Jacksonville is clearly a step ahead, having won a playoff game. And Houston is probably a couple years away, but they should be, at least feisty with their new team with Will Anderson and C.J. Stroud. So I think Tennessee has a great chance to win the division. And then, after that, it's anyone's guess.
Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, and Josh Jacobs unable to reach a contract agreement with their respective teams today at the deadline for the franchise tag, which was about an hour ago. Jordan Schultz with us. Jordan, Saquon, it felt like the Giants were trying to get something done.
Yes.
Ultimately, why didn't they at the deadline?
I think the biggest holdup was guarantees, and I have been talking to both sides leading up to those final minutes, and I felt in terms of Saquon, Tony Pollard, and blanking on
Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs. I felt like out of those three, Saquon by far had the best chance to get a deal done. And listen, there have been 100 different reports about the numbers that he did or didn't get and that he turned down. The bottom line was he's forced to play essentially on that 10 and change $1 million tag, which is extremely advantageous to the Giants. But to me, and this is where the fan in me has to balance being the NFL insider, because as a fan, Saquon Barkley is everything that you want in a New York Giant. He has that same level of Daniel Jones, Eli Manning, Justin Tuck, accountability, doing things the right way. And on top of that, he comes off a career best year, over 1,300 yards, double-digit touchdowns. He was sensational, two-time Pro Bowler. He's 26, but the running back position is set so that you simply cannot pay them. And you really go back to the Nick Chubbs, Zeke Elliott's, Christian McCaffrey's. Those are a few of the guys that have gotten either some money or real money, Elliott being probably the best of the bunch with about 90. I don't see how, if I'm Saquon, I don't see how I can, and I just reported that he's going to hold out. He's not going to be reporting with his Giants teammates, but I don't see how I can look at this and say, I'm going to be here long term. I really feel like this has to be the last year for him in a Giant uniform, and that's the report right there. And I don't blame him, frankly. I understand the business side of it, and that it is in the Giants' best interest financially to tag him and have him play on it and pay Daniel Jones. I reported that deal as well. But as a fan and as a human being, I sympathize for the guy because he has done everything the right way.
Well, let's stick with running back and Dalvin Cook. What's the latest with him, and is he the next big domino to fall?
So I talked to his camp today, and my sense was definitively that they were going to see what happened today with the three running backs, Jacobs, Pollard, and Barkley. And now that all three have been officially tagged or they didn't come up with a long-term agreement, I think you could potentially see Dalvin heat up a little bit, but I still don't get the sense that he's in any particular hurry. For someone like him, going to training camp is not an appetizing situation. I know he's 27. He comes off the shoulder surgery. He is healthy for the first time in a really long time. He's a 4-time Pro Bowler each of the last 4 years, and he's the only running back to eclipse 1,200 all-purpose those 4 years. So I think you could see that market begin to heat up. We'll see, again, the Dolphins of the world, Broncos, Jets. I think the Patriots make a lot of sense. They have Ramondre Stevenson, but that money that they didn't ultimately pay Hopkins could potentially go to someone like Cook. So I could see them getting in the mix, but I think he'll still take his time to a degree, but there's kind of that balance of, okay, I want to find a new home. I don't want to be there at the beginning of camp, but I also want to be comfortable enough in my new offense and my new home going into the 2023 season. So I would expect that to get done in the next, why don't we say 2 weeks?
Jordan Schultz with us. Jordan, final minute or so here. Seeing Dalvin Cook and how this has transpired and progressed, or should say it's gone the opposite way. They've regressed in what he thought he was going to get. Seeing the pay cuts that have gone around the league, Joe Mixon taking a pay cut. Why would these running backs that can make $10 million this year at this position hold out and potentially even pretend like they're not going to play?
So you're saying more of the other three, the Barkley, say,
yeah.
Pollard,
Why not just take the $10 million and see? I mean, it's a guaranteed $10 million. I don't know why you take it based on the position.
So I agree, and I would anticipate that all three play. And I think it'd be really hard from a business standpoint to say I'm going to turn down $10 million when that really, in essence, is better than the market value that I'm going to get from a long-term contract, especially if it's super backloaded. So yes, I would agree that that's probably going to happen. Jacobs and Barkley will not report. That doesn't mean they won't play. I would still anticipate that they play next season. But I think what it does is it essentially shuts the door on a long-term contract down the line with the Raiders, with the Giants. And that's a shame because they have been the heartbeat in many ways of those franchises over the last few years.
Jordan Schultz has been our guest. Love the Birmingham Barons. Jordan.
Yeah, I was wondering if that would translate. If you would pick
man.
That. You know what? To me, this is probably my favorite shirt, and I had to wear it on my favorite programs.
Got a great setup there, too.
It's terrific.
You always bring it. Our favorite guest here. We really appreciate it, man, and let's catch up soon.
Anytime, fellas. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Jordan Schultz. Follow him for the latest. And he nailed it on Barkley, reporting that he's not going to show up to training camp. He had the Daniel Jones contract and much more. And he's got solid intel in the NBA as well.
He has got
at Schultz.
He's got good sources. He does some good source work. And by the way, I watched Michael Jordan play for the Birmingham Barons back in the day. I attended a game.
What was that like?
It was packed. It was at Greer Stadium in Nashville against the Sounds, the AAA team there. Yeah. And it was a packed house to watch Michael Jordan.
You remember what he did that game? Did he even
I think
play?
he got a hit. I want to say he was like 1 for 3 or 1 for 4. I know that he got on, but he got a hit at one point.
No load management for Jordan in that era?
No load management. He was out
on the
there.
Road?
He was balling constantly. He may have been private jetting around a little bit
sure.
instead of on the bus. But some of his family, I think cousins, were seated right behind us. I remember talking to them. I forget the exact relationship, but it was family members that got tickets through.
Was Larsa
Michael
there?
Jordan. Larsa was not there, to my knowledge.
She's got to get her four bangs in for the day.
Yeah. Well, you got to start young,
Sure. No doubt.
Got to start somewhere, Hutton.
Coming up, Clark Lee joins us, head coach of the Vanderbilt Commodores. He'll join us live from SEC Media Days. New contract extension and a 5-win season for a team not predicted to do much. That's next.
Two biggest social media giants, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, are set to battle it out, and I'm here on Broadway asking people who they put their money on. Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk, they're going to fight each other. Who do you think's going to win?
I think Mark's got him.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that?
Because he's a man.
Okay, and Elon Musk isn't?
Oh, well, of course, he's got money.
Okay.
He's got money. Money, well, money's money.
Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg in a fight?
I don't know. I'm going to go with Musk.
Why?
It just seems like he's a little bit younger, a little bit smarter.
You just got a good feeling about him?
I got a good feeling.
Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg?
Musk.
Why?
He trains. That guy's going to beat his
But Mark Zuckerberg is actually training jiu-jitsu for 9 months.
Not happening. Elon Musk all day. Elon Musk.
Why do you think?
He has no soul. I mean, I think he's definitely just going to no holds barred.
Elon Musk.
Why do you think that?
I don't know. I feel like he's stronger and smarter.
Oh, Elon Musk.
All the way? Why?
All the way. He's an animal. Think about it.
Mark Zuckerberg's been training for 9 months jiu-jitsu. You think Elon Musk can take him?
Yeah, I think he can take him.
Elon, that oh God, stop playing with Elon. Elon really do this out here, for real.
I hope Elon
Really? Why do you think so?
got better ideas.
Zuckerberg's like 5'7", 155. Musk is 6'1", 190. But Zuckerberg's been training jiu-jitsu for 9 months. Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg, who's going to win in a fight?
Oh, Elon Musk. No doubt.
Why do you think so?
He's the GOAT. I've been seeing all the Twitter handles and all the talk, and I'm on Elon Musk's side. I'm ready for them to get in the WWE ring and then come off the top rope. That's what I want to see. I want to see a people's elbow to Mark Zuckerberg.
If one was more likely to be a lizard or a robot, who would it be?
Elon.
Elon.
Okay.
I think Mark Zuckerberg will win.
Why do you think that?
Because I think he already trains MMA. So he's got like the prior experience and stuff. I mean, they're both billionaires, so they have the opportunity to get the best training. But I think Mark Zuckerberg will pull away with the win.
Elon Musk.
Why do you think so?
Because he's bigger.
Bigger. Okay, but Mark Zuckerberg's been training jiu-jitsu for 9 months. Do you think that matters?
No.
Because Elon Musk's he's gonna learn and train, right? So
Yeah. I think he'll handle Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg's a lizard, right? So
he's a lizard, but does that help him?
I don't think so. I think Elon will squash the lizard.
Cage fight. Elon Musk is mental, so Elon Musk.
All it is just he's mental. He's mentally crazy. So
He just wouldn't care, would he?
Okay.
He'd just absolutely go for it. I think Zuckerberg would be a bit more refrained.
Okay.
If that should ever happen, which I doubt, but you never know, it'd be entertaining.
Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg?
Elon Musk.
Why?
Because
Elon
my
Musk.
dad is in love with Elon Musk.
Okay.
I think I'm going to have to go with Zuckerberg. I mean, Threads just came out, so.
Who do you think would win?
Zuck.
Why do you think so?
Because he's not a real human. He's a robot.
So he'll use that to his advantage.
Yeah, and all the Krav Maga stuff too. Yeah.
Yeah. Who do you think would win in a fight, Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk?
Elon Musk.
Why do you think Elon Musk?
I think Elon's He smarter. works with robots, so maybe he built a robot to fight for him.
But what if Mark Zuckerberg is a robot?
Oh wow. Then I might have to change my answer.
Who do you think's gonna win?
Me.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. The location of SEC Media Days. It's, what, a block and a half from here?
Yeah, close. We made the very hot walk back today.
Yeah. Clark Lee joins us. Made the walk over to our broadcast setup. Head coach of the Vanderbilt Commodores, fresh off of a contract extension, fresh off of a season where he's proving the media that were there last year wrong about the expectations of this team. And we've got a solid group coming back as he continues to build the program back. Coach, good to see you, man.
Yeah, I feel like I should be there in studio with you guys. This is
Anytime.
a little different.
I know, absolutely.
Maybe
Anytime.
I'll hop the next pedal tavern over there.
We'll send you an Uber if you can't find a pedal tavern because those are packed.
Yeah, that's probably the better decision.
What did you think about the contract extension, given the short time you've been there and knowing the path that you're on, and you're not going to go anywhere? This is your landing spot. This is your alma mater. This is where you want to be.
Well, I think just right off the bat, what you're saying there, I mean, it's one thing to say this is home and this is where my heart is, but to have the contract that shows it, in recruiting is a big deal, and I want those families to know and those players to know that I'm going to be their coach and I'm going to be here a long time. Obviously, I'm humbled by the fact that our administration and Daniel Diermeyer and Candace Lee have seen progress and believe in the progress, believe in the direction. I think there's great responsibility in that. That's certainly not an arrival. It's still a beginning. And so, I just, look, the announcement today was awesome, and getting that out of the way before the season was fantastic. But for me, it's about shifting to the work that needs to be done, and there's plenty of that. But yes, very excited and very grateful.
I want to get into some of the comments from Greg Sankey in a bit, but there are coaches that spend time on the address to media at the podium. Some don't. You certainly do. How much time have you spent preparing for the address tomorrow?
No, I try to prepare for everything that I'm a part of, especially when I'm wearing the Vanderbilt logo. It's important to me to represent our university, to represent our team, and to message our alums and our fans, but to message the guys that are just down the road working hard for the season. I don't take those things for granted, and so hopefully enough time to be able to hit my marks, and hopefully also not to draw too much attention for being long-winded, although I am who I am, guys. I'm not going to change. So I'm excited to be up there, though. This is, look, as a coach, I mean, there's not a bigger event to me than SEC Media Days to be able to get up. It's just such an honor to be in front of a room and to be able to talk about your program. And so we're excited to have the college football world here in Nashville, and certainly looking forward to talking some Vanderbilt football tomorrow.
Two things. First, you've turned heads with your suit choice the last couple of years. Can you give us a preview for tomorrow? And you absolutely have to drop in the line about your goal is to win a national title at Vandy. That has to be somewhere in there based on the news you made last year.
It's funny. I mean, I say that stuff, and I'm not. I'm being authentic to who I am.
I know.
And what I believe.
Yeah.
The stir that caused was funny to me, and I enjoyed it because, for a couple days, people were talking about Vanderbilt winning the national championship in football. I think it's a great thing. Suit-wise, listen, I feel like I'm a little bit understated tomorrow, but my wife tells me it's the best of my three that I've had. So I'll be excited to reveal that, and hopefully, I look good. What is it? Look good, feel good, play good. That's the goal tomorrow.
Coach, you're someone every time we talk to you, you're always listening and you're always learning. And I think that you see stories and take things and you build from that and try to build experience with it. When you see the Pat Fitzgerald Northwestern story, what is the lesson to you, and what would you reiterate to your team about that story?
Yeah, it's sad. I think it's sad on a lot of levels, and I'm I don't know that I've processed it fully, but my heart goes out to that program and those players and coaches and everyone involved. I know it's just a challenging thing, and short of commenting on what's gone on there and what hasn't, because I don't know, I'm not a part of that program. What I can tell you about our program is that true brotherhood is the first covenant in our 5 covenants, and that demands certain behaviors and certain respect from us. And no one's perfect, no program's perfect, and Lord knows that I'm imperfect in so many ways, and I need to take ownership of my mistakes and make sure that I am willing to be accountable for those, to model what it means to be a part of something bigger than yourself. But we build our program off love and respect, appreciation for the opportunity, and we have to be very deliberate with how we carry that, not just onto the field, but into the corners of our locker room and into our spaces, meeting rooms, et cetera. I think also just, for me as a leader, and I think for all leaders, it's a lesson too, and it's not just enough to have a message. It's not just enough to have a vision. For me, I've got 10 staff members full time. I've got basically 50 staff in a broader sense. Every single one of those people is important. Every single one of those people need to carry the program message and the program culture in their areas. And it's just a reminder that we can't sit back and take anything for granted. I feel very privileged to have a staff that I believe in, that they believe in me, that we're set on alignment and on our mission, and yet we got to continue to have conversations about what is right, what is wrong, what needs to be redirected to make sure that this program always is built in service of the players. That's the ultimate to me. Is I don't ever want to be a part of something that somehow damages the experience of our student athletes. It needs to enhance it. That's why I coach. And at any point, if I lose track of that, then I've lost my way in terms of the role that I signed up to be a part of.
Clark Lee with us, head coach of the Vanderbilt Commodores. I love being able to chat with you because we can just, shoot the crap here and give honest opinions. I don't think there's any way that a head coach, as paranoid as you guys are about injuries and everything else getting out, that you don't know what's happening in the locker room. I feel like you would have a firm grasp on what's going on at Vandy, or you've got someone in there that is reporting back to you on the tenor and the temperament, the temperature, right? Is that how you would approach it, and is it as much of a sanctuary as it's made out to be?
Well, we have to be intentional about being in there, and we're overseeing 18 to 22-year-olds, and there's challenges in that. I mean, hell, we were 18 to 22 years old once, and listen. But for me, you build trust, you build alignment in what the program ethos is. We recruit, we select into our program, right? So we're very intentional with the way we recruit. We want to see certain, attributes of character and of, character development within a person. Not that they're a perfect fit. We want them to add to our culture, but we know there's development that needs to happen too. It's never going to be seamless. What you want to see is people that are willing to course correct, that, when you can have a hard conversation with someone, you see behavior shift. That's what growth's all about. And when you're not seeing that, it's sending some signals. I think paying attention is so important, and we can all get so busy to where we see the things we want to see and stop paying attention to the things we need to see. But seeing the program honestly and from a sober perspective, to say, hey, these certain behaviors are showing up. What does this indicate about the soul of the program and where it is? And then we got to be intentional about stepping into those spaces and sharing those spaces with the players too. We have honest conversations. I've got, a team of leaders within our program that keep a pulse on those things. And this is a collaborative approach. We're co-creating this program. And so I need to set the course, and then I need to drive accountability on that course. But I rely on a lot of people to help me, keep the program on the course we've set. And I think communication and awareness, and again, paying attention, become the hallmarks of having success in that manner.
Heard from Greg Sankey today. We've certainly talked with you about spring meetings and the coaching comments and reaction behind the scenes to certain things. Who's vocal, who's not. You're certainly speaking up and speaking your mind here. Sankey's calling on federal legislation of NIL yet again, which tells me they're nowhere close to getting anything done. How has name, image, likeness impacted your program specifically? And Sankey's calling out the state legislations where, they're banning any type of legislation or guidelines for name, image, likeness. Meanwhile, other states have guardrails up and there's no uniform aspect or policies in place. How much behind the scenes are coaches, specifically in the SEC, in the top conference, asking others to come together and actually form some type of guardrails here for where we're headed?
Well, we're aligned with Greg on all that. I mean, I think he's we're on a slippery slope right now with all this, and we got to be really careful with where we take this thing. What's needed right now is for us all to come together. What some of the state laws that are being written are really pulling us apart right now, and I think that's a dangerous place for our game. And Greg's been great about giving us opportunities to speak to, representatives and senators and people that can actually make real change for us at the federal level. And we need them to step up and do that. It's something that our game's going to need moving forward. And it's not an easy issue. This is complicated, and it's going to take compromise. But I trust in the commissioner. He's got great vision for what this should be. He's obviously super smart and intentional with what he does. And I think I'm grateful to have him in this role now and to be, steering our ship as we deal with all the things now that are changing within our game. NIL is going to be a huge one. Creating a level playing field for that is important. He talks about if you're going to have a national championship, you need to have national standards, and I'm right there locked in arm with him on that. I think the product, the on-field product, the kids deserve that, and so I'm anxious to see that change take place. And in the meantime, we have to make sure that we're developing in a program where we have such a solid product internally that between the authentic relationships, the development that takes place, the investment our players feel that we make in their process, and also their ability to earn off name, image, and likeness, all those things combined. In our program, we just don't put that money transaction first. We think that leads to a transactional culture, which in my mind, in general, but specifically to Vanderbilt, is not the recipe for us to build something that is sustainable and lasts. So that's our philosophy on it. Again, I'm right there with the commissioner on, and with Candace and Chancellor Diermeyer on, pushing for that federal solution. We made a trip to D.C., as part of the SEC day up there, and we're going to keep having those conversations with who we need to have them with.
I love events like this because it puts the coaches together. You got 14 big personalities leading these huge programs all in the same place, even if you're alternating days. SEC spring meetings the same way. And, Coach, you get kind of a sense of Vanderbilt and the perception of Vanderbilt when you're at an event like this, talking to so many media members, talking to coaches. Do you feel like the wins over Kentucky and Florida last year got everyone's attention? And is there a different level when you're talking to coaches or media now based on getting those two SEC wins, good SEC wins late in the season?
Coach, we got about a minute.
Yeah, I think the external perception shifted subtly last year. I think for me, the 5 and 7 is not what I signed up for, and we can look at it and say this is, progress is great, but we're still early in on this to build it to where we want it to be. I'm glad that Vanderbilt is a little bit more respected in the conversations within being competitive in our conference. But again, that to me is ancillary to the work that we're putting in internally. So that's my focus, is just what we're doing day in, day out to build the program. And I know over time, people will be paying attention because, the wins, the external ripple effect of our internal investment will help us to be on the national stage.
I love the way the schedule works out early in the season for you, and I know you especially like the fact that you're not traveling to a vacation destination in Hawaii for week 1. They're coming to you.
We love Hawaii, but I'd rather go there and hang out than have to work.
Take us anytime if you want.
We're excited. It's great. It's great, for us to open the season here in Nashville and week 0 and. I'm excited that that'll be a team that comes in with a chip on their shoulder too. So we can't take anything for granted this season. We have such an excited group of people and energized about what's possible. We have to go earn everything we get this season, and hopefully through camp we've developed a team that can be dangerous.
We always love the conversations, Coach, and Chad and I look forward to getting out and seeing you guys practice, preparing for the fall. We appreciate it a day prior to when you really officially hit Radio Row, and we'll catch up soon.
Always good to be with you guys, and you're always welcome at Vanderbilt.
Same here.
Thank you.
In studio anytime. Clark Lee has been our guest.
We'll get that Pedal Tavern over for him.
A well-deserved contract extension for the work he's doing there with the football program. Coming up, why Sam Darnold says he chose San Francisco and the 49ers.
Fitzgerald has been fired. Pat Fitzgerald, the beleaguered, the weirdo, I guess, or his weird players, has been fired by Northwestern University. And the Northwestern children, the players, are not happy about it. They are not taking it well. Well, I ask you, Northwestern players. In fact, I just put out a video to Northwestern players that are mad. And they're mad because, well, the old coach. The old coach got blank canned because, well, the players decided it was a good idea to get naked, do naked crawls, naked claps, naked soap up themselves in front of the shower and make players run through, because the players of Northwestern really are perverted. I mean, I'll never understand it. Now, I got guys saying, well, Bobby Knight, you guys hazed just in a different way, yelling and screaming. Yeah, you're right. We did. Tough. You don't like it? So what? But we never did the nudity thing. We never did the sexual assault thing. We never did the stuff, hey, we're going to slap you and dry hump you. At some point, the players, don't you agree, the players of Northwestern got to look themselves in the mirror and say, you know what? This is kind of on us. You know what? We caused a lot of this. You know what? We shouldn't have done that. Now, every time I see a Northwestern player from now on, I'm like, yeah, you're a weirdo. Used to be every time I saw a Northwestern player, I'd be like, man, you're a tough dude. You played for a tough coach, played for a high-end academic institution. I'd hire you in a second. Now I'm like, yeah, you got a bunch of weirdos running around there. Now I'm like, what in the hell are you doing there in the locker room at Northwestern? And I told you yesterday that this firing was coming because of this one reason. When you have to have outside people monitor your locker room because your players are perverts, because your coach allows it, because it's a culture of somehow, some way naked hazing. And no one's denying the hazing, by the way. So it's not like I'm speaking out of school. Sure, Fitzgerald, Fitz, whatever, is a great dude. Sure, he is the face of Northwestern. I would argue he's the most important figure in the history of Northwestern athletics. Nobody's not saying good dude. But he did what a lot of dumb meat-headed coaches do. He got on his little mount. He's got his little pillar. He's got his little kingdom. And on top of the kingdom is him. And he got to thinking he was untouchable because no coach with any common sense would allow that in this day and age. I don't know what they were doing back when Bear Bryant was having guys out at camp. I don't know what they were doing when Kay first started. I don't know what they were doing at Indiana when Knight first started. I only know what I've been involved in, and it's never involved dry humping other men or nudity. Just saying. In the locker room. Naked. On my team. Never. Anywhere, actually, but never. Used to give you a ball tap once in a while out in public just to say hello. But I got to tell you, it's just the weirdest thing. And none of these players are taking any accountability. You know what they're doing? They're doing the Biden strategy. This went from the Bob Knight strategy of round up all the players, ex-players, whoever, and talk great things about this strong man. Look at his chin. Yeah, that's what they do.
Glad you're with us for Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow, 6th and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Gary Danielson on tomorrow's show, Chad.
Oh, I love Gary Danielson. That'll be good.
Andy Staples from On 3.
Well,
also on the show. Much more.
So, Gary Danielson, the CBS SEC part is done, right? Or is that next year that starts?
CBS has the games.
It's one more year.
Yeah.
Okay, one more year, then it goes to Big Ten.
Yeah, and so Texas and Oklahoma are coming in for ESPN's.
That would make sense as to why he's at SEC Media Days for one more year. So there it is. There's the tie-in. Ah, now I see. It's the last year. Not the last year was the last year.
Ted, there's a one-year opportunity for Sam Darnold in San Francisco. And first glance, he's making comments on Pardon My Take with a discussion on why he chose San Francisco. And I'm thinking, well, you're a backup. You have a $4.5 million contract on 1 year, 1.5 guaranteed. You sucked. And now you have a chance to be a backup for a great offensive-minded head coach. That's surface level. He's also in a crowded quarterback room when healthy. But right now, it's not necessarily a healthy quarterback room for the Niners. Trey Lance is coming back off of injury. He hasn't stayed healthy. He's barely played since 2019 on football just in general because they only had one game during the COVID season. And I mean, he sat out a year, backed up Jimmy G, and then Brock Purdy's the starter now. But he may not be ready based on the elbow surgery. Still a big question there. Darnold, with the litany of playmakers behind him in the backfield and around him in the passing game, Chad, I don't think it's maybe it's not a no-brainer. I don't know the other options here, but a 1 year, $4.5 million deal with a chance to jump in and just hand the ball off to just name a back. Anyone from, Deebo Samuel, Elijah Mitchell, Christian McCaffrey's there now. course, George Kittle. Passing game should be on point. I don't hate it for him. And if you believe that Kyle Shanahan, regardless of what goes on and who you are, for the most part, Kyle Shanahan's going to get the most. He may have an opportunity to play, and there are incentives in this contract. Could he be a year from now? I don't know if I necessarily buy it. Could he be the Baker Mayfield of next offseason, where you feel like because McVay, sprinkled some holy water on him, all of a sudden Baker Mayfield's better than what we thought when no one wanted him, and he ends up in LA in the season and played well. Could this be a version of that because Shanahan is going to be coaching him?
Come receive your blessing from Kyle Shanahan. Here, you'll now be blessed, and you can go forth and prosper in the National Football League because the holy hand of thy holy hand has touched you. I think there's some truth to that. I think with both McVay and Shanahan that you can kind of get the special blessing, and then you can look good, and they can make you look good or help you look good, and it could lead to some better things. And I think you nailed it also, that crowded quarterback room, but also wounded quarterback room. So this is a legitimate opportunity for him to start some games for the 49ers and be in a great offense. So the reason he's there, to me, is very simple. It's the fact that he's stepping into a situation where you've got some injuries ahead of you, and you may end up being the best option and the healthiest option. And you're on a very good team.
And they're a team that's going to keep 3. And I don't know if every team's going to keep 3 quarterbacks on their roster to begin the season, but you have the emergency QB option that they must be on the active roster in order to get that designation on game day, where he can be inactive but play as the third quarterback. I think some teams will go into the season.
That's the new rule, right?
Yeah, they implemented that.
This is like the 49ers rule because of the NFC Championship game where they were down to no one.
Where Purdy, who you see on the screen, could not throw a forward pass.
Yep, and had to get back out there.
Based on the elbow issue. They're doing this for the integrity. But even if this rule were implemented, based on what San Francisco did, they only had 2 quarterbacks on their active roster going into that game. So I think they keep 3. And I think Darnold, he's not competing for the starting job. They're going to say he is. But if he wins that job, Trey Lance is not the guy. It's going to be Purdy's job. But again, he nearly had Tommy John. We haven't seen much of this type of elbow surgery across the league. And when it happens at the quarterback spot, generally you lose your fastball a bit. Yeah, so I think it's not just some foregone conclusion that the glimpse of games we saw from him, despite not losing until he got hurt, and then knowing that we still don't know about Trey Lance, it's not some foregone conclusion that they're going to be just fine at the position because these guys are coming back and it's assumed healthy.
Yeah, and I just think that the 49ers, the way they're set up, there's a lot of quarterbacks who could win a lot of games playing for the 49ers. And that's not a knock on Brock Purdy. He did very well to be in the position that he was in when he got a chance to play and did win those games, right? But what I'm saying is it's not just Brock Purdy that could win those games. I see a world where Sam Darnold could have won those games and had the same record also. That's how good of an offensive mind Kyle Shanahan is. That's how good the roster is around those quarterbacks also. Right.
So even if you screw up, they're going to set you up with the football again.
Yep.
So they also have Kyle Allen, and they have a group of Carolina quarterbacks out there with Darnold and Allen. And then, of course, Mayfield, the former Carolina quarterback as well, who went out to L.A. Now he's in Tampa. You see the report that there are some on the roster in Tampa that believe that the Bucs are still recruiting Brady?
I mean,
they have to be telling themselves that because they know they're going to suck at quarterback.
Yeah. We had Bruce Arians on at the Super Bowl. I remember talking about the quarterback situation there. That video that we showed of Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask looking terrible, back to back. I mean, it's a bad situation. And that would not surprise me if they're still in contact with Tom Brady in some way. I don't know if it's like an active recruiting pitch as much as you keep the bat phone line ready to go.
It does not sound like he's coming back in week 1.
If you get a call on the Tom phone, they can keep a Tom phone on the desk, the red phone right there, and then if that phone rings, you pick it up, and Mr. Brady's coming back. It's always at the ready.
And it doesn't feel like that. He's making comments about how he's relieved that he's
done.
not getting ready for week 1.
He's done.
Yeah, I think so too. Unless it's some random move towards the end of the season. But the Bucs aren't going to be in position for that.
I'm just curious now if he gets to his TV deal with Fox.
Well, he says
there's been some speculation about it, but in his initial, I'm looking forward to what's next, including the TV part of it.
And
with
he told
Fox.
Jim Gray that it's 2024 when he's doing that.
So I want to see him get to that. Right? Like it's still a long way away, but I want to see him get to that and see what's next for him.
No doubt. Chad.
Which is going to be whatever he wants.
The Las Vegas Raiders are the most expensive NFL team to go to a game with a family of 4 and support. Interesting piece that is recapped by Guns, the Gun Show, Mike Gunzelman at OutKick.
Guns was at Blink-182 last night. I know that shocks no one. If you've ever seen or heard Guns on this show, he was ready.
He's in every place. He's everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that the Raiders are number 1 based on the travel destination. Even if it's not, if you're not a Raiders fan, if you look at the road trips you could go and support your team, and Vegas is on there, that's a weekend. I'm surprised about the price tags for some of the other that are around the top 5 or 6. Some of this is players that were on rosters that are no longer there. So we'll see some of these teams drop back down because Brady's not in Tampa, for instance. And the Chiefs and Eagles are the usual suspects that I would think would be in the top 10. But the Browns at number 2, just behind.
Chiefs are expensive?
Yeah, 2 of 10 for a family of 4. Yeah. So,
I would think. I mean, I know they're very good, which certainly helps the price. But I feel like the Chiefs would be in the least expensive category in the league.
Yeah,
given market
but it's ticket demand too, right?
Yeah.
But Raider Nation dishing out over $738 to take your family of 4 to see Garoppolo and the Raiders this year at Allegiant Stadium, based on the prices. You have a family of 4. Think about dishing out $738 to see your team.
Well, it's a pretty big decline too to the next one's on the list from that. So it's a nice little sizable jump up for Raiders games. I can't. I gotta. There's a Kids Bop concert, like these group of kids that sing all the hits, that's coming to Nashville.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at tickets for that, and it's like $65 a pop. So I mean that adds up pretty quick when you're talking about 4 people, and then talking about an NFL game going to a Raiders game with that. I'm assuming that cost also includes some form of concession they add into it also, with the price to go. But that is steep. Hutton, I've been so conditioned over the years with free tickets or press passes to so many things that I have a hard time paying for a ticket.
Well, I mean,
anywhere I go, I have a hard time doing it.
Just on average, it's around $600 if you just combine all of the teams together. And I've long said, I think the toughest ticket in sports to sell is the upper deck outdoor stadium. Indoor stadium doesn't matter to a NFL game, because the higher the ticket price, the more demand there is to sit and have the parking spot at the game. You've got a great view. You have some amenities. If it rains and it's an outdoor stadium, you can go inside the club level. You're better off. I mean, the fans that are going to spend $45 on just the cost to get in on an upper deck price. Why would you not just stay at home and have the best seat in the house instead of not being really able to see what's going on? You don't know when you buy the ticket what the weather's going to be like. And, I mean, there's nothing but traffic problems, hot dogs that cost $12 each. I mean, I don't know how some of these teams go about trying to sell the upper deck. It's extremely difficult, and that's why half of these things are kids groups, kids flag football teams. They're honoring certain high school football teams or whatever, and they're putting them in the upper deck because they want to fill those spots.
It's hard. I think about football tickets in general. Like, you go to a baseball game, it's really about kind of the experience, of going to the ballpark, and not as much oftentimes about the game itself. But the football is about the game. Like, we are obsessed in America with football, and we care about the results of the game. And if you care that much about the results of the game and seeing everything, it is far better to watch it on television and to get every piece of it that way and every piece of information you need as it's happening in the comfort of your own home. So selling the experience of being at a game live with those ticket prices, just in general, not just Upper Deck like you're talking about, I believe is going to become increasingly more and more difficult for people because, and part of it is because we care so much about the outcome, we feel like, hey, it's better just to sit at home and watch. And then when the game's over, I can change the channel and go right to another game and not have to fight traffic and miss things on my Sunday afternoon.
But the lower sections in a stadium are typically a PSL that you've paid, right? So they lock you in because you don't want to lose that investment.
Yep.
And you have certain, perks that you get based on team invites in the offseason and other things. You're not doing that on a seat-by-seat basis in the Upper Deck.
No.
Or unless you go with Chad and you can sit in the suites.
Yeah. Just, find people that have a suite, and then that's where you go.
People will sit in traffic for that.
I have not paid for a ticket anywhere in years. I'm happy to admit that, too.
The days are gone of being able to go to a game and get back home and watch the late afternoon games.
Oh, yeah.
It is an all-day deal that it's just always going to be that way.
You can watch Football Night in America and get ready for the night game, for if you go to a noon game. That's about the time you're getting home.
We in traveling with one of the teams, we would end a noon Central kickoff. I would be back home by second quarter of Sunday Night Football. I was back home before some of my friends that went to certain games that weekend because they got stuck in traffic or, they just couldn't get to their parking lot.
Tailgate went a little longer than they expected.
Yeah. Had to sober up.
Yeah. Drink some water.
I saw more of Sunday Night Football than they did.
Yeah. Crazy.
I definitely remembered more. Back at it tomorrow. Plenty of SEC coverage and much more. Thanks for joining us. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network.